Hello, so like all the other what ifs, this isn't mine, it's a fanfic. The link is the description if you want to check it out. Anyways, let's get into it.
Hello?
Anime demigod.
Here?
Las Noches, it was such a lovely place, a place befitting a king of Hueco Mundo. He had to admit the place was wonderfully crafted and the technological equipment that was used was unlike anything. Well, Aizen was indeed a resourceful person. Naruto had traveled around the world of hollows for a few minutes in full speed before he finally reached the palace of Aizen. When he got in, he realized that it was easy to get lost within the place. It was insanely huge and there were several hollows inside the place. Of course, he killed some hollows who refused to tell him where the main residence was. He then went out of the place, and stood on top of it. There was no reason to believe that his presence had yet to be noticed by the owner of the palace. So, he was not the least careful in anything. Naruto was finally able to locate the place where he sensed several high Ryotsu signatures. Once his target destination was confirmed, he disappeared in a swirling vortex. Aizen's throne room. The king of Hueco Mundo was silently watching his subordinates bicker as Ulquiorra explained everything that had happened in the human world. Yami had not been pleased that he had been forced to leave before he got his revenge on the blonde. No serious damage was done to him, but those attacks seriously hurt and were meant to render him immobile, not kill him. His stoic partner had been quick to remind him that he could not have even put a scratch on Naruto even if he wanted to. Aizen had yet to tell his subordinates about the man who had made a short work of Yami without much trouble. It was simply amusing to watch them bicker as they were. They were discussing about who was useful and who was strong. Yami was being berated as being weak because of his defeat to someone unknown. Just then, a swirling vortex appeared within the room, alarming everyone. But Aizen merely remained calm, with a small smile spreading across his face. Jin, standing beside his master, leaned down and whispered, "Ah, it seems he has finally decided to pay us a visit." "Indeed he has," Aizen replied. Ever since he found out about the blonde, he had been keeping track of him. This man could pose a threat to his plans. But given all that he has gathered, he could not be much of a threat. He had been waiting for the man, knowing that he would surely come to him one day. Who could have the audacity to storm into enemy camp without backup, other than Uchiha Naruto? The swirling vortex revealed Uchiha Naruto. The Espada were quick to recognize him as they had seen him from Ulquiorra's memories. Yami was quick to respond in anger. He charged towards the blonde blindly, but no one even dare attempted to stop. He was loud, and they were interested in seeing how the blonde would fare given that he was surrounded by enemies. Naruto sighed annoyingly. Everyone noticed. "Not you again," he said and locked eyes Yami. The hollow came to an abrupt stop as he was inches away from his target. A few were able to see what had happened. It had happened so fast that one could have easily missed it. Naruto's katana was pressing against Yami's neck. If it was not that it had actually managed to cut him, he would have believed that the blonde was unable to cut him. Naruto retrieved his blade and placed it back to its sheath. Yami grinned. "You should not have done that," he yelled as he attempted to punch Naruto straight on his face with his right fist. But the blonde disappeared and appeared behind the large hollow. Yami quickly twisted around to face the blonde. "Ulquiorra, you said I couldn't cut this guy, I will show you now that I can." The Espada number 4 merely shook his head. As usually, Yami was not good with senses. Even he could tell that this man wasn't an easy target. There was also a reason he felt brave enough to come here without so much as bringing other Shinigami to ensure that he got out alive. But Yami didn't care about reasons. The large Espada swung his right hand, aiming to hit his opponent from behind as he wasn't looking at him. The punch was thrown with all his might as he wanted to squash the little guy under his mighty punch. However, Naruto's left hand blocked attempted punch with an open palm. The hand blocked the punch just above his left shoulder. Naruto didn't even move, despite some winds blowing past him because of the power that was put behind the punch. Despite Yami's punch being blocked, the big man merely grinned as his hand started glow red. "Bala," he shouted. However, nothing happened. "Bala," the Espada shouted again, yet nothing happened. Naruto flicked the hand away from him before he swiftly turned to face Yami. "I really don't like drawing my blade twice against children. Once is tolerable, but twice just makes me feel unhappy," he stated, voice void of any emotion. The tone wasn't very different from that of a hollow. "Tch," Yami growled. "Don't get overconfident, Shinigami. I will crush you now. I hate children for such actions." The blonde mused silently before drawing out his blade. He pointed the blade at Yami. "Bala," he said, and a red beam shot out of the tip of the blade and sped towards a wide-eyed Yami. The big espada brought both hands in front of him in an exposition to defend himself from his stolen technique. The technique didn't do much aside from a few burns on his hands. Yami growled. "Bastard, that was my technique." "Yes, and I have no use for it, it is useless to me," the blonde stated while still holding out his blade. "Perhaps my execution was just not flawless. It doesn't matter anyway," he mused loudly. Naruto then took several steps toward the big hollow, but just then he disappeared from view. The others were able to track his movements, but Yami couldn't. Hence he didn't see anything when Naruto suddenly appeared behind him. The other espada shook their heads as they saw what had happened, but Yami had not. "Come here, Shinigami," he yelled, returning around. Just then, his right hand fell off his shoulder and blood began to gush out in a heap. This followed by Yami's screams of pain and curses to murderer Naruto. The blonde twisted around to face Yami, his blade followed in blinding speed, moving towards Yami's neck. But it suddenly stopped just inches away from cutting his head off. Something else caught Naruto's attention, and in the end, he put his blade away. Ulquiorra was forced to take Yami out of the area so that he doesn't become a bother to Aizen. Though, the espada dully noted that his leader was merely enjoying the show. Naruto knew the nature of hollows. He knew that because now they were not on a mission, no one would stand to protect Yami even if he were to attempt to kill him. But he had tried that already, so he was not going to, and besides, something else had caught his attention. He then took a few steps towards the ever-smiling Aizen. "Welcome to Las Noches, Uchiha Teiko," Aizen said politely in a smooth tone laced with some sort of respect. Aizen was sitting up so he could look down on those beneath. Naruto did not feel good having to look up so he could speak to a child. Well, with what Aizen has done, he guessed he could no longer call him a child. "Ah, a lovely welcome indeed." The whining child was a bit annoying though, he responded as he continued to walk towards Aizen, in a slow pace. Aizen smiled. "If you had informed me beforehand that you were coming, I would have prepared a seat beside me for you." Oh, how good he was with words. "What do we owe the pleasure of having you with us, Uchiha Teiko?" He had an idea of what he wanted, but asking was just being polite. "He does not strong to me," Espada number 6, Grimajo stated as he marched towards Naruto. He stopped in front of the blonde. "A Shinigami is in our midst, we should get rid of him, he stinks." "Aizen-sama, you just called him a captain, if we get rid of him now, we would have weakened them." That made sense regardless of how you looked at it. Naruto, though, ignored him and walked past him. He then stopped when Grimajo pulled him back by placing his hand on his shoulder. The blonde merely narrowed his eyes at the hollow. The best way to make a hollow submissive is through fear. When there is a Vastolord that is powerful, other hollows stay away from his path because of fear. But the arrogant and stupid ones match straight into his path. The end result is that they get slaughtered and because of sheer arrogance. "Is that some of threat?" the Espada questioned with narrowed eyes. He was ready to tear the Shinigami apart. Again, Aizen merely watched with interest. If Grimajo gets killed, he would find another hollow to replace him, it was easy as that. Only a strong man can enter another strong man's house and hope to come out alive. Unless you can outsmart a snake, you must never be foolish enough to play hide and seek with it or its venomous fangs will violate your flesh. He paused for a moment. Some already got what he was saying. But the number 6 Espada did not get it. "Now tell me, child, do I look like a prey or a predator to you?" Grimajo let the comment about being called a child slide as he responded. "All Shinigamis are preys to me," he responded. "So you are saying that those 3 are also your preys?" Naruto questioned, not even sounding interested in his own question. Aizen actually smiled at the question, wondering how his rebellious subordinate would respond to it. It was now lost to Grimajo that those 3 was referred to the other Shinigami in the room. So he settled to glare at the blonde for a second before grinning. "You talk big, I wonder if you can back those words. But I have no problems in teaching you a few lessons," he said, readying to attack the blonde any moment. Naruto looked at Aizen. "I imagine that he is quite an annoyance," he said to the former captain, ignoring the fact that Grimajo was still standing beside him. "He is sometimes," Aizen admitted. "But he can be handled." The man never lost his smile as he responded. Things were going so well. Naruto was just how he thought he would be. He was certainly not disappointed with the blonde's visit. Do you dare ignore me when I am talking to you, Shinigami? Grimajo yelled, trying to pull Naruto to face him. He found it impossible to move the blonde. The air became quite tense after Grimajo had spoken. I am a predator, always. Everyone I see is a prey. I devour who I want, I play with who I want. I am Uchiha Naruto, and I have no equal. You are a child, who needs to play with the other children and let the adults talk. The words were said in a calm and smooth but yet deadly tone. But the threat beneath the words was lost to Grimajo. He grinned widely. He was cut off when Naruto spoke again. A true testimony, hollows only respond to fear. With that he released his riot so it was focused of Grimajo. But because he had no perfect control over it, the others felt it, albeit at a lesser degree than the target. Instantly, Grimajo fell on the ground as soon as this heavy weight fell on him and started to suffocate him. Naruto dropped his Ryutsu after a few seconds and walked towards Aizen without even sparing Grimajo a glance. It is amazing what fear does to one, human, hollow and Shinigami, they all react the same when it comes to fear. Tia Haribel marveled at the confidence of Naruto. She had felt his spiritual pressure, it was strong, but there was one thing she knew, Aizen was a monster. Still, the blonde had all the confidence. He had walked inside here, surrounded by enemies, and yet he did not seem to mind about them. It seemed that he was only interested in Aizen only, but still watching him walk and talk like that made her give him some credit. No many had the audacity to do something like this, especially in front of Aizen. It irked her though, that he was ignoring them. It was like he saw them as nothing, no threat to him. Typical of Shinigami, they all thought that they were all superior to them. Naruto looked at his right hand. He had sensed something there. But it was not now that he felt it. He had felt it a few moments earlier. Aizen seemed to notice that something, not within the room, had gotten his attention. Something interesting got your attention, he questioned, smiling. But he was curious as to what the man could have sensed. You have gone to the Forest of Death, to be more precise, the forest of the god of Hueco Mundo, Naruto stated, turning back to look at Aizen. Yes, I have. Aizen did not even try to hide that fact. The blonde had not even asked if he had. It was a statement of fact. The hollows got curious when the god of Hueco Mundo was mentioned. To them, it felt like he believed it existed or had been there before. And Aizen had been there before. They all knew about the forest, but only 2 had dared to enter the forest. And you took something from there that belongs to me. So tell me, what did you find in Eden? That was what the inside of the barrier was called. What you have just confirmed now, Aizen responded. I have found out the god of Hueco truly did exist. But I did not find him in Eden. I can now confirm that you used to live there more than 1,000 years ago. Aizen's response got the hollows to stare right at Naruto. Was Aizen saying that this Shinigami was over 1,000 years and had lived here in Hueco Mundo, within the home of the god of Hueco Mundo? How could that be? Especially since he looked so young. Aizen-sama, are you saying that this Shinigami has lived in Hueco Mundo before and in the deadliest places within this world? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying, Aizen responded calmly. Don't let looks fool you, he warned. I find that hard to believe, Grimajo stated, but a lot more quietly. Then was he related to the god of Hueco Mundo? Naruto spoke in a calm tone. Quiet down, children. You will have your time, he said. He did not come here to listen to what the Espadas had to say. So you were able to feel that he is in here, by just being here, Aizen stated, referring to what he had taken that belonged to Naruto. I sensed him the moment I appeared here. And I have already alerted him of my presence. That raised an alarm inside his Aizen's head. I doubt there is much he can do given the delicate situation he is in, he replied coolly. Naruto shook his head. The reason you brought him here is because he can't be killed. If he could be killed, you could have killed him. But even when bound, a dog finds new strength when his master returns from a long journey, he kept his tone calm. Aizen did not react to this. I will show you what I mean. By now he should be ready. As if Naruto gave the instruction, there was a sudden explosion that shook Las Noches. A heavy riot so then washed over them before dying down. There was a flash of darkness beside Naruto. A hollow appeared beside the blonde, it looked human from its head to toe. But its hands were clawed, they were black. It kneeled facing down. Naruto-sama, I have come at your request, the hollow stated in a hollow tone. There was no mistake that the hollow was powerful. They knew that it was the hollow Aizen had kept locked inside a cage. But it was a surprise to see such a powerful hollow kneeling before a mere Shinigami. Why does such a hollow as yourself kneel before a mere Shinigami? It was ironic that the questioner also kneeled before a Shinigami. Perhaps Aizen was no longer a Shinigami, or there was something special about him that Naruto did not have. You are uniformed, fool. Your stupidity and arrogance leads you to say such things. My master is neither hollow nor Shinigami. Aizen was not surprised by this, for he already knew. But you on the other hand kneel before a Shinigami. But I guess it is to be expected. Weak fools need someone to hold their hands so not to get lost, with no regard to who holds their hands. Baragan growled dangerously in response. This was amusing. He had forgotten about this attitude. Naruto looked at Aizen. I would imagine that you would not want him to leave since you went through the trouble of bringing him here. But you are a smart man. You know an attempt to do that would end in this place being destroyed. He placed his hand on his subordinate before he started to disappear in a swirling vortex. I will return soon, and then he was gone. Aizen-sama, should we go look for them? Ulquiorra questioned, ready to track down those two. Aizen shook his head. There is no need, he stated while still smiling. You have all met Uchiha Naruto, the former strongest captain in Soul Society. He then stood up, leaving his army to digest what he had just told them. Eden. The barrier was still activated and everything was well. Nothing was broken, but for his subordinate to enter, he had deactivated the barrier. The air within the barrier was very different and calming. One would never wish to leave once they came here. But there was a problem because this was designed to reject those who would stay within the place for too long. Every visitor had to come here and then leave. If you did not, you be flushed out. It was not unless he gave permission for one to enter the place. But he should have made a barrier that restricted both Shinigami and hollows. Well, it did not matter anyway. This one had worked well over the years. It was not like more Shinigami would attempt to come here. He looked at Kishin. How were you defeated? This one was one he thought would never taste defeat. He had made all the measures to ensure that this guard was strong enough to handle anything. To compensate so the lack for strength that was like his, he had made him immortal and sacrificed some of his powers. Yet this hollow was still defeated. It was obvious that he was stronger than all of Aizen's toys, unless they had other cards. He was strong, Naruto-sama. His Zanpakuto is also an illusion type. The illusions deceived me and I was captured. I apologize for my failure, Kishin reported. The man had been strong. He had not been expecting someone as strong as him to come knocking at his door. Over the years, he had decided that sleeping was the best medicine since nobody dared to come here. But the Shinigami had come and fought against him. I would assume that he had tried to recruit you before engaging in battle with you, Naruto stated, knowing that such a thing wasn't out of the question. If you were gathering an army and came across Kishin, you had to recruit him because he was very strong. The hollow was a beast amongst hollows. He was also powerful. He did not need weak underlings after all. He first came here, when you were still sealed. He tried recruiting me by telling me that you had been permanently sealed and he would give me a new purpose. But I refused and told him that you would return to me one day. Even so, his visits became regular. Each time he only spoke to me until a few months ago. Naruto nodded. I am going to the core of the well. I might be there for some time, he stated calmly as he walked on top of the water from the waterfall. He was standing beneath the waterfall where there was a pool. Stand guard, he jumped into the water and disappeared. He needed to prepare his body for the ritual he was going to perform very soon. The well would help his body grow everything back to place and all his eyes would mature perfectly. One could say that he would be in top form after leaving here. Hours later. Naruto had spent hours inside the water. He did not count because once he went inside the core of the well, time moved differently. His grandfather had been truly a genius to think that something like it could be made. He had done all the research and gathered all the materials, but he killed him before he could do it. He was the one who finished all the work and made his grandfather's theory a reality. It took him some time to get it done. Creating the thing also weakened him greatly as he had used too much power. It was his power that brought the thing to reality, thus he was its master. He owned the well and could destroy it any time he wanted. No one could achieve that feat. He always made sure that things that he made were dependable. He did not like it when things he owned misbehaved. After leaving Eden, he then sped towards Las Noches to get Yamamoto's information. It would really be annoying if he did not get anything to tell to the Soteiko. He did not want Central 46 to be bothering him with the fact that they think they could seal him. It was true they could seal him given his current condition. But the trip to the core of the fountain of living water made him good. Even if he could be sealed right now, there could be no seal that could hold him forever. He had all the keys he needed to unlock his full power. Being sealed would not stop him. But he did not want to give those fools the satisfaction that they could. Upon reaching Las Noches, he appeared into the place he went the previous day. But he did not find anyone. He stood there for a few moments before someone walked in. It was a former Shinigami captain, Ichimaru Jin, the ever-smiling man. He looked at the weird man with an expressionless face. "Where is Aizen?" Straight to the point, Jin said to himself more than to Naruto. "Follow him, Aizen Teiko has been waiting for you," Jin said, turning around to leave on the way he came by. Naruto said nothing, he merely followed the former captain. Jin looked at Naruto, who was quietly walking beside him. He did not look to be interested in his surrounding nor even checking for traps. This was a man who could walk into hell without a single worry, without even checking for threats. This man could walk into a pit of fire while he sees it. What gave him confidence to do such things intrigued him. "So you are one of the original captains. Aizen Teiko says you were stronger than Yamamoto those days. It must be sad to lose all that power and sealed." Nah, his tone sounded genuinely curious and innocent. Naruto was not the one to get riled up by such things. "You are a very interesting child," the Bond stated. "I have lived long enough to get the general idea of a being just by looking at it and hearing it talk once, either be hollow or Shinigami. Very little can be hidden from my eyes. I have seen you twice now, heard you speak just now." He paused for a moment. "Because you are an interesting child, I will tell you this: what you see, feel, hear, and read, is not always the reality. All those things can be deceiving. But you know that already." Jin's grin only widened as the two continued walking in silence. Bored of the silence, Jin asked another question. "Your eyes are special, and you're rumored to be more powerful than Yamamoto. Could you actually defeat Aizen if you wanted?" Naruto looked at Jin for a moment before he looked ahead. "Well, aren't you a little snake?" he said. "I'm told Aizen has an illusion-type Zanpakuto and no one can escape them. These illusions, they are the reasons he was able to fool the entire Godai 13 no. That and the fact that he is really smart," Jin said. "When you're brave enough to tell me the reason you wish to know all these, I'll give you my answer, and then some." Naruto was led to a room which seemed like a boardroom where business executives have their meetings. Aizen was sitting down around the table with his espadas around the table also. Of course the chair Aizen sat on was very unique. It had to be, he was the king of Hueco Mundo after all. All hollows fear his name. They bowed and kissed his feet when they saw him, they trembled under his mighty power and played within his palms when he wanted them. He was after all Aizen Sosuke, the man who will sit in the heavens. But first he had to overthrow the king of the spirit world. "Naruto Teiko, we have been waiting for you," Aizen said, ever so smiling confidently as he motioned for the blonde to sit down. Naruto sat down between Stark and Haribel. It seemed that he was sitting on Jin's chair as the Shinigami was merely standing by. Naruto looked around, looking straight at each hollow. They all quietly stare back at him, some seemed to glare or snort, but he did not mind at all. They seemed to be well-mannered children as nobody dared to speak. He looked at Aizen. "It seems you have," he stated. If he was not Uchiha Naruto, he would have surely been surprised that the man predicted his time of arrival and set up a lovely table. "What brings your visit to us?" The whole room was quiet as Aizen's smooth voice echoed through the room. He was asking the same question he had asked the previous day. Naruto had not responded since something had come up. He knew for sure that the blonde had not come just to retrieve his subordinate. "I was a little surprised when I heard that someone called Aizen was trying to overthrow the Spirit King. I thought anyone would be foolish to attempt such, knowing just how strong that thing is. But I see you have made a good start," Naruto stated in a calm voice. The fact that all these hollows could attempt to play with him did not concern him one bit. It did not concern him that Aizen might be planning something for him. "A good start?" Aizen queried. He dully noted that Naruto referred the Soul King as a thing. But he chose to leave it for now. It was not that he has not seen it. It should be expected from the man to say such a thing given his history. A history, it was all it seemed to be, but Aizen knew better. These children can play with the Godai 13 for a while. But if they faced Yamamoto, He would wipe them out. Naruto paused, looking thoughtful for a second. Who are you calling children, Shinigami? Baragan growled deeply. It did not please him that he had to lose his throne to Aizen, and now a child of a Shinigami had the audacity to call him a child. Naruto looked at the hollow. He seemed older, but no one in this room was older than him. Why ask a question you already have an answer to? Are you merely testing the waters? Grrrrrrrr, Baragan growled. Watch what you say, Shinigami, or I will crush you. Who is he? Naruto asked, looking at Aizen. The threat was meaningless to him. By the way the hollow spoke, he seemed to one used to be in power and authority. Still, that did not scare him. There was nothing that could scare him. Baragan Luzenbern, the King of Hollows, Aizen responded. His hand movements displayed that the title was self-proclaimed. He just wanted to see how the blonde would react to all this. He was positive before this that Baragan would be the one to be in confrontation. While that happened, he would study the man once more. King of Hollows, this old cloth, he seemed amused more than anything by this hollow. The insult of Baragan being an old cloth received some snickers from some of the Espada. I will not allow you to speak to me like that. I am the King of Hollows. And there is no such thing as the god of Hueco Mundo. I have traveled to the Forest of Death, there is nothing there. There has and I only one ruler of Hueco Mundo, and that is me. Baragan spoke loudly, banging the table. Everyone else was quite as if they were used to this kind of scene. The barrier Naruto had set Eden could not be seen by Hollows since he had made an illusion on it. He did so that no one could see what was inside. That is an understatement. You bow to Aizen and still have the audacity to call yourself a king? You are not even the strongest in this room. If you are God, should you not be the one ruling Las Noches instead of being a barking fat dog that has lost its bone? Aizen merely watched in amusement. This of course was a surprise to the Espadas, as nobody, even Aizen, spoke to Baragan in the manner. Baragan banged the table furiously, standing up. My patience is wearing out with you, Shinigami, he sounded beyond infuriated. It was clear that one more push and he would explode in the face of Naruto. Ignorance truly is bliss, Naruto said, looking away from Baragan. I am beginning to despise beings that look old. They are grumpy, loud, and annoying, and filled with overconfidence. I should end this hollow. King. Pathetic, one that is weak should go along quietly or play in the sand. He seemed to be talking to himself rather than anyone. But everyone heard him. Within an instant Naruto was sent crashing through the walls, sent through by the brute force of a brutal punch by Baragan. No one did anything to stop the infuriated Segunda Espada. Baragan followed suit by shooting a powerful Zero at Naruto. The Zero hit him dead on and sent him crashing through more walls. Baragan grinned with satisfaction before returning to his seat. We just had that fixed, Jin pointed out, a fact that he was sure everyone, including Aizen, would ignore. The man seemed far too amused by the show to mind anything. Jin had to admit, the blonde did have a way with words. They could be buddies if things worked out well. How could he miss a chance to buddy a man such as Uchiha Naruto? Ignoring Jin, Baragan looked at Aizen. I took care of him. Now should we get on to why we were called here? Aizen shook his head. It was not yet over. Just then, Naruto walked from the hole on the wall, dusting himself, but with no wound, not even a scratch. Perhaps you may be a king after all, but a king of sheer arrogance, the blonde adding more to the insults. He raised up his right hand, facing Baragan. Allow me to show you a real Zero. His second strongest Zero was deadly. It is enough to severely wound him. Perhaps only the strongest could survive it. Even if Baragan does survive the blast, when he sees it next time he will run away. A real Zero, was the thought of some Espada. They did not know that the blonde could use hollow techniques. Just then, a black ball of dense energy began to form on Naruto's palm. It was quite obvious by the Ryotsu being released that it was no ordinary Zero. While it slowly formed, electricity sparks began to sparkle around it as though it was part of it. The immense power was felt by everyone, and there was the fact that Naruto was a Shinigami captain. So how could he use such a powerful hollow technique? Baragan arrogantly stood up, waiting to take the Zero head on, believing that only his power was absolute. Naruto was only forming it slowly for show. Another point that was worrying was that the blast would not take Baragan only. Before the Espada could act, Aizen spoke. Naruto Teiko, a technique of that magnitude will not do well this well. It can cause the atmosphere of this place to become unstable. And I still need Baragan for my plans, the former captain stated smoothly without sounding as if he was demanding that Naruto cancel his technique. He made it sound like he was politely asking the blonde to cancel his technique. Naruto sighed before canceling his technique. He sat down ignoring the glare Baragan was giving him. Aizen decided to speak before anything else happened. Baragan, will you please sit down so we can talk with our guest? Even though he sounded so nicely, everyone in the room knew that Aizen was not asking. He was telling Baragan to sit down, no questions asked. It was not a request. And if the Espada did not do as told, there would be consequences. Begrudgingly, the former ruler of Las Noches sat down quietly. That hollow you left with, he said you were neither hollow nor Shinigami, what did he mean by that? Tia Haribal questioned looking straight at Naruto. She was rather curious to know because he looked like a Shinigami, and felt like one, but there is something that made him feel like a hollow. Not to mention he can also do hollow techniques. It means I'm not a hollow or a Shinigami, but I do possess powers of both species, isn't that obvious enough? If he could use hollow techniques, it must mean that there is a hollow part of him. However, that was not the reality of things. The truth was that he could use hollow techniques because he could. There was no barrier that limited him from learning anything he chose to learn. If he wanted to live even as a human, he could go to the human world and live as a human. Anyone could see him, even humans. He didn't need a Ginkai for humans who aren't spiritually aware to be able to see him. He exists in every dimension, spiritual or physical. He could also live as a hollow while assuming a hollow form. Not much was impossible for him, after all. I know that is obvious, Tia said firmly. She wasn't the least bothered by his response. What I meant to ask is what are you if are not Shinigami or hollow? You cannot be a human, so what are you? Aizen merely watched this play unfold with a small smile. He wondered though, if Naruto would answer the question honestly or not. However, knowing the arrogance the man had, he wouldn't be surprised if he told them what he was. The man did believe he was untouchable. Telling them what he was wouldn't put him at any danger. Saying things he shouldn't be saying wasn't a bother to him since he thought no one could defeat him. Even if you knew how his abilities work, and other things, it wouldn't make a difference because he would always overpower anyone. This is what Aizen believed to be the thought of the blonde captain. I am what I am, that wasn't what Tia expected to hear. But she wasn't going to press further. Naruto looked back at Aizen. Yamamoto asked me to gather intel on what you're doing here. I find the task bothersome, but it can't be helped. I'd assumed that much, Aizen responded. The lack of information means that they can't act or do anything since they do not know the kind of danger their enemies might pose. I do believe that by now they've already discovered what I plan to do. Naruto didn't confirm nor deny anything. In fact, he said something else like he hadn't heard Aizen's last words. I've sensed a number of hollows within this place, special kind of hollows. However, I do assume that these ones here are your elite forces. You could say they are the captains. Something does lead me to believe that these ones the ones that of use. I would absolutely have no use for the flies that are flying around here except these ones. Aizen too didn't confirm nor deny anything. What do you think of my plan? Would you be interested to take part of it? I don't know. Naruto said looking in thought. Who is the strongest here? If you want to find out, I propose you battle one of my subordinates. I'm sure you'd be interested in finding out just how powerful they are, and I'm interested in seeing how they can do against someone like you. Your power is legendary after all, or perhaps you no longer have that power, Aizen said smoothly. Ho. He sounded amused about something. Are you trying to assess how much of a threat I can become, if I do become one? Unlike the rest of the captains, you cannot tell how powerful I am. That is up for debate, Aizen said smiling. I do like to see something original from you should you choose to test my subordinates. Aizen, aside from the people he truly knows, Naruto almost never call anyone by their name, yet he did it here. What do you think when you see me? He then shrugged. Well, never mind, he said. Will you show me this thing that makes all things possible? Naruto wasn't looking at Aizen when he spoke, but rather, he was staring at the ceiling. Some other time, perhaps. Later. Aizen Teiko, why did you allow Capt. Uchiha to come here and leave without even trying to stop him? Jin questioned his leader curiously. It was indeed an interesting choice that Aizen had taken. Naruto had a potential to threaten Aizen's plans, yet the man still allowed him to enter into his palace and leave without much of a fight. The man did not even seem to be interested in having the blonde fight. He seemed interested in other things. That man can be stronger than the captain commander. But he has yet to recover all his strength. It will be interesting to see what happens when he does recover all his strength, Aizen responded while still smiling smoothly. Would it not have been a good thing to rid of him or try to convince him to join your cause now when he has yet to recover? He may prove to be a problem in the future, Jin reasoned while looking straight at Aizen. He certainly did not care what the man wanted or if he tried to convince Naruto to join his cause, he was more interested in why he let him come and go. That would be the most logical thing to, Aizen admitted. Jin could feel that there was a but coming. And indeed it came. But that man is not like anyone, you can't convince him to follow you, he only follows the path he chooses and besides he can't be killed easily. Still, all the espadas would have proved to be a match for him. It would also have been interesting to see what more he could do, Jin said, pushing for more. He knew that Aizen was aware of what he was trying to do. But that would not stop the man from giving him what he wanted, well if he wanted to, that is. They might have, Aizen said. But if you noticed him speak, he said the espadas may be able to hold their own against the captains. And he also added that Yamamoto would wipe them out if he went against them. He never included himself in the picture. I did note that. What are you thinking, Aizen Taiko? If we were to launch an attack at Soul Society now, that man would not take part in it. He will merely watch how things proceed. I have no doubt that even if some of the captains are losing, he wouldn't join the battle. How sure are you about that? I mean, wasn't he friends with Kiraku and Yuka-take? He also gets well with Anohana and Shudera-san, do you think he will watch them being defeated? If he cared for them, he wouldn't watch them being defeated, or killed. Maybe he may, he didn't seem to care about much after all. Jin didn't believe it when people said Naruto cared for Shudera more than anyone, and wouldn't kill her. He didn't look like that kind of person. That man once said he has control over life and death, if they die, he could just bring them back, if he can that is. Besides, Anohana will not fight, neither will Shudera-san. Kiraku and Yuka-take will be the ones that fight, and I don't think he cares for them that much. Do you think he will come back to test the espada? Yes, he will come. Even though he knows that I'm just trying to gauge out his power and trying to have him show the espada just how powerful a true captain is, so that they can be prepared. Squad 1 Barracks. The captains stood in the usual formation as they waited for Naruto to offer his report on what he'd seen in the land of Hueco Mundo. Yamamoto had called everyone so that Naruto could give his report while everyone listened. After hearing what the blonde had to say, it was then that would make a decision on how to proceed. The only noticeable absent captain was Yuka-take, who was struggling with his sickness. Naruto looked at Kiraku, avoiding the gaze Shudera was giving him because he'd been away from home for 2 days, and he hadn't said anything to her. Whereas Yuka-take, he was the only one who called the captains informally. Oi, Swyfon started glaring down at Naruto. Weren't you stripped from your rank as captain by Central 46? So why do you still wear a captain's haori? And speak to your superiors with some respect. That was indeed true. Since he was demoted by Central 46 as punishment for his actions against the 2nd Division's captain and her men, he was no longer in the same playing field as the captains. The woman had all the rights to call herself his superior. She even wondered why Yamamoto wasn't doing anything about it, and Central 46 should have noticed this already. Who cares what Central 46 says? Naruto responded with a shrug. The Godai 13 was created by Genri Yusai, its laws, code, and everything. I was one of those who helped him furnish the laws while I was still his student. In its creation, Central 46 had no role, and only assumed control over the Godai 13 over the past hundreds years. While the Godai 13 does report to Central 46, the body has no authority to strip me of my position. Nevertheless, they can do so indirectly by ordering Yamamoto to do so. When you look for a new captain, do you look for Central 46? No, you simply follow the ways of the body, and the code of the body tells me that Central 46 can't fire a captain. Well, I could be wrong if the laws changed over the years. Things have changed, Swyfon stated firmly. I'll report this to Central 46 and see what they can do to punish you further. Okay, Naruto simply said, surprising even Yamamoto. You can go now while I'm still here, he added before looking back at Shunsui. Answer me, Kiraku. He is sick, the captain of the 8th division simply said. Naruto sighed. How the mighty has fallen, he said. Yukatake had such glorious power, yet a simple sickness was keeping him in bed. Now then, what do you want to know, Yamamoto? What you can tell us? Let us see, what can I tell you? Naruto became thoughtful for a few moments before he finally spoke. Aizen has an army called Espada. They rank from 1 to 10 and going by rank, can challenge the children in here. He also has more hollows under his command, but they are not worth mentioning. That was all he said. Anything about the Hogyaku? Mayuri asked, curiosity evidently dripping in his tone and expression. Nothing concrete. But I do know that Aizen uses it to create his Espada, or a new breed or hollows if could say, Naruto responded calmly. The Hogyaku was one part that Aizen wasn't willing to tell much about. He was actually rather secretive about it, but he would eventually find out what he wanted. He still had another meeting with the former captain after all. Well, that is not much information, Mayuri said again. I'd thought that you'd return with intel that would give us something to work with. But there is nothing concrete, but a few words. You should have really gone with me. Naruto tilted his head a little. If you want to go that badly, I have no problems in sending you straight into Aizen's court. Perhaps you may be lucky and find all his subordinates with him, and they might play with you. Mayuri narrowed his eyes. Regardless of how you look at it, that was a real threat. What I can say about all these, is that Aizen has created his own elite army that can revival us the younger captains. We all know that Aizen is smart, so he knows our strength. I like to believe that he is prepared to make an opponent for each one of us. However, the fact that he hasn't done anything now means that he is still preparing. If we can get to Hueco Mundo, why don't we just go there now and end this before he can finish things quickly? Hitsugaya stated in his most rational mind. That would be a risk, Byakuya stated calmly. We don't know what these Espada's abilities are, and we could as well find Aizen waiting for us if we go there. I agree with Kukaki-san, Kiraku said. Let us find more information about this before we make our move. I wouldn't be against the idea of heading to Hueco Mundo if we knew everything about the enemy. But we don't, and that place is their home turf. There could also be traps within the place. Are you afraid, Byakuya? Kenpei questioned, looking at the Kukaki. If it was up to him, he would not be against the idea of going to Hueco Mundo. What could hurt in a few surprises? If they were strong, they would succeed. No, I'm just using my head, Byakuya responded coolly. Before Kenpei to retort, Yamamoto spoke. Naruto, you will take Captain Shudera, Kiraku, and Kuratsuka with you to Hueco Mundo so that they can find valuable intel on our enemy. You will be watching their every step and ensure that nothing happens. If there is ever a chance of danger, bring them back. Are my orders clear, Naruto? Naruto blinked at such an order. Did Yamamoto just use Shudera like that? That was totally unexpected. He knew that he wouldn't do anything to Shudera and Kiraku and would actually ensure that they were safe. Both those two wouldn't allow harm to come to Mayuri. I will indulge you this once, Yamamoto. However, I will not accept being held on a ransom like this next time, if there is a next time. Naruto's house. Naruto was inside his house with Shudera. Given that the house was away from Shirai, he could do everything that he wanted without eyes seeing that they should not and ears hearing what they should not. He was underground inside the lab that he used to store important documents. Without him, no one could enter the lab. There were things that people should not look into inside the lab. Today he was going to finally reclaim everything. Everything, well, except for Amaterasu. But he would fetch her after everything else. When this was a success, he would disappear and watch everything that Aizen was doing from far away. He would only intervene should there be a need for him to do so. So, you are really going to awaken all your powers? Shudera said, looking straight at him. Yes, Naruto responded, sitting down in a meditative position. Under him was a seal with different arrays within it. Just hold still, while I complete everything. If you hadn't actually made amends or explained yourself, I would surely take advantage of this situation to do what I please with you, Shudera said, smiling at Naruto. She was actually threatening him. Even though he would never show it to anyone, there were threats that did get to him. He wouldn't even admit that he was wrong, mostly because of his pride. The man held his pride high above all things. Shudera had never seen anyone who was so prideful than Naruto. And no matter what happens, he never swallows it. He always carries it above his shoulders. Perhaps it was because things always turned into his favor that he wasn't forced to swallow it. How would you take advantage of me, Shudera? Naruto asked, looking straight into the eyes of the black-haired woman standing just away from him. You're going to be vulnerable to attack right about now. All your power will be focused on unsealing whatever that is sealed inside of you. You are also not going to be conscious of what is happening outside unless your body experiences pain or you are moved. The woman still smiled when she spoke. If I was your enemy, what do you think I would do? No, there is a good one. If the Soul King were to come here and find you vulnerable, what do you think he would do? What do you want? Right now, you're asking me to stand guard because you don't want anything to interfere. Inferences could ruin things, that's what I assume anyway. Shudera started before answering Naruto's question. I want you to make me a promise, Naruto. What is it? I want you to promise me that you'll love me like you used to. If you can't do that, then this relationship isn't going to work. Better we just end it because I'm not actually happy and you're not looking at me, rather you're focused only in what you want, Shudera stated firmly. She did know leaving him wasn't going to be easy. He would probably be angry if she decided to do something like that and would most likely kill someone. However, dying seemed to be a better option than continuing on with a life like this. Sometimes she couldn't even define what she was trying to make work because it didn't feel like there was a relationship between her and Naruto. Do you feel that much neglected, that you're willing to make me promise in such a situation? Yes. I've told you before, and you said you would change, but nothing has changed. Fine, Naruto smiled at her, a true genuine smile that Shudera hadn't seen in years. I will work on my resent towards you for choosing your duties over me, he stated. With that he closed his eyes and entered into the depths of his soul. Naruto walked silently in a new world. Above him were shining stars and a full moon, but under him was just pure eternal darkness. The blonde walked without even minding all the darkness underneath him. He walked for a few minutes, before he decided to increase his pace, knowing that where he had to go was a little bit far. After a few minutes, he finally reached a large cave. Without even stopping to do anything, he entered the cave and walked in darkness. Once he reached the center of the cave, he clasped his hands and some lights flickered on. In front of him was a large steel gate. But beyond the gate was darkness, there was nothing that could be seen at the other side of the gate. The light that had appeared within the cave did not seem to penetrate through the large steel gate, the gate kept out the light, denying it entrance. Naruto held out his right hand and began to write something in the air around him. Once done he clasped his hands together and a light blue seal rays appeared around his entire body. He then touched the ground before muttering a few words. When he was done, the whole insides of the cave was covered with the light blue seal. He walked towards the large gate and touched it. Once that was done, the other side of the gate became visible. And inside it, there was a coffin that was strapped by large black and gold chains. Everything seemed old, yet nothing seemed to be breaking apart. Naruto attempted to punch the gate to open it. But his punch rebounded and he was forced back away from the gate. When he was about to go at it again, he heard a voice calling him. Takemi. Then a woman appeared in front of the gate. She was a tall slender woman with long red hair that reached her waist. She wore nothing but a black dress that was tied around her waist level. She was barefooted. Her eyes were light green and she was smiling sadly at him. For the first time in 1,000 years, Naruto felt anger boiling in him. He was so furious at seeing this woman appear in front of him like that. He wanted nothing more than to tear her apart. But seeing her smile sadly forced him to keep calm. Had it not been for that sad smile he would have lunged at her. He knew that smile, it did not spell anything good. So being calm would help rather than acting in anger, which would do him no good. How are you here? He questioned through gritted teeth and a death glare straight at the woman. I have always been here from the day this gate was created. This gate is me. You have been here all along? You have been alive all along. His voice was louder than it normally was. How could he keep calm seeing the woman who damned him and the only person who could make sure that he never fully awakens? But that was not what was making him shout. No, it was the fact that she'd been inside of him all along and yet he never knew. Yes. I knew that you would attempt to unlock this gate so that you could get all your power back. So I sacrificed myself and sealed myself within you. I have been watching almost everything you do in Soul Society. What are you planning, Amaya? Naruto questioned, walking slowly towards the woman with narrowed eyes. His mind was already begging to work on a way to get out of this situation. I am going to end our existence, all three of us." This time her small smile had disappeared, it had been replaced by a rather serious expression. "I only set this up if you became successful in finding the key. I didn't want to end you, I only wanted you to live a normal life. But that didn't happen, and now we have to die together." "What?" Naruto froze just in front of her. It was possible for her to do so. It was possible for her to kill him despite his immortality. When it came to him, this woman could put a dent to his plan. But that did not mean that he could not do anything about. But to do anything, he needed all his power to counter her seals. "I have seen your power, Takemi. No one should possess the kind of power you have. You cannot live forever in this world and hope rule it over. With your power it is very much possible. But I cannot let that happen. If you fully awaken, everything will change. It might be the end of the world. I cannot let you get to him. We will all die here." As she said that, she began to glow light blue, forcing Naruto closer to her and the coffin close to her. Naruto couldn't control any part of his at this time. It was just like last time. "I know you might survive this. But there is only 1% chance that you will survive. If you do manage to survive, you will not live long enough. The damage to your body will be too severe, and even if you continue to live, you will never be able to use your Ryutsu again." Naruto by this time was trying by all means to break away from the invincible force that was holding him down. Yet he couldn't. "You are so proud of your power. I am going to release it at once. In this situation, it will be unstable and uncontrollable like a wildfire. Do you know what will happen if you do that? Uncontrollable spiritual in the depths of your soul. In your full power, your Ryutsu is enough to kill anyone less than a captain, just by coming close to you. I have already set a seal which will make sure all your power goes, boom. It would just be like setting off a nuclear bomb from his gut. If you turn my Ryutsu into a bomb, it will destroy my body from the inside and may possibly erase my soul." Wide eyes and frozen, for the first time, Naruto felt fear. Fear that he was actually going to die. His immortality could not deal with the kind of explosion. His body could not handle it. Even if he does survive, his power. No, he had set up other plans should anything like this occur, but he had to worry about surviving here. "I know you planted an egg into Shutara's soul. When you were sealed, that egg hatched and gave birth to another replica of your soul. Should anything happen to you, that soul will activate and you will be reborn again. However, if it becomes like that, you will not have your full power, you'll just become a normal Shinigami." She stared straight into his eyes as black Reisu began to cover the whole cave, causing it to tremble. "You planned for that, but this explosion will kill her also. If you were in Shirai, it would possibly destroy it." Naruto could feel his body overheating. The Ryutsu around the cave was turning into a source of heat. That was not all, the spiritual pressure inside of him was being forcefully pulled out. He looked straight at the woman in front of him. How could she do this to him? Amaya leaned down and kissed him on the lips. His lips were still cold as usual. She smiled sadly. "I will always love you, Takemi. But it has to end this way." Right then cracks began to appear all around her body. And then everything just went boom. The whole of Soul Society began to tremble under the explosion, causing everyone to panic. Naruto's house was wiped out of existence. The explosion caused the atmosphere to become unstable. Because it became unstable, violent winds began to form around the area and a dark cloud formed in most of Soul Society. Thunderstorms roared in abundance as they tore down the very fabrics of space. For once, Soul Society stood on her feet, as she witnessed these great phenomena. The heavy Reisu washed all over Soul Society, forcing almost all souls to their knees. Some who were strong remained standing, but with some difficulty. The debris that had picked up took about more than 2 hours to finally die down. The violent winds had already stopped, but the atmosphere seemed still unstable, making it dangerous for just anyone to enter. What used to be Naruto's house was but a large crater that dug deep down the ground. Amaya had been correct. If the explosion had occurred in Shirai, it would have destroyed it, killing all Shinigami. Even after everything else within the crater that once had life had turned to ash, Uchiha Naruto, or what was left of him, was in the middle of the crater in air. Naruto, what was left of him, had turned all pure black. Not even his blonde hair had retained its color. It was all pure black, what was left of it anyway. The side of his right face was all blown out. The remaining part was his left side and his left eye. His entire right shoulder was missing, and there was a large hole from what used to be his stomach. There were 6 rods sticking out of his chest and at the back. Both his legs from knees were missing. He could not even breathe. His lone eye was just wide, frozen in shock. 4 shadows then appeared at the edge of the large crater. They all looked up at Naruto, who was now falling down the center of crater. It has been a week since Naruto disappeared with his house in a bang. He was not the only one to have disappeared. Shudera also disappeared. The explosion that had set off in his house had turned everything to ash. This left nothing but a crater in the place what used to be the blonde's house. It had taken much to create the house, she knew it. The house could not be easily be destroyed by anything. Naruto had ensured that his house was strong. He had made it in such a manner that even Quincy's could not absorb the spirit particles that created it. Since everything within Soul Society was made of spirit particles, Quincy's were able to use their abilities to absorb everything to use their weapons or empower themselves. And since Naruto held a certain amount of dislike to the Quincy, he had ensured that they could not absorb the spirit particles in his house. The place that Naruto's house used to be located had been locked away in a barrier. Yamamoto did not want anyone playing within the area. There was the fact that after the explosion, the Royal Guard had come to inspect on a few things. They did not say much about what they were doing, they only talked to Yamamoto, before leaving again to the Soul King's dimension. It had been a surprise to see the Royal Guard appear to investigate the matter after the explosion had occurred. They rarely involved themselves in this kind of matter. But then again, anything that had to do with Naruto had to include them since the blonde did things that concerned every living creature. They had investigated the scene thoroughly before anyone could. Not even the 12th Division was allowed in the scene as they did their investigation. The area had been quarantined because the atmosphere had been unstable for a few days. There were wormholes opening up consistently. Anyone could get caught in them, and it was discovered that once swallowed within one of them, there was no return. To avoid losing anyone unnecessarily, the area had been sealed. Only those given permission by Yamamoto could enter. But the atmosphere had regained its stability after a week. Nonetheless, Yamamoto still had the place sealed as Mayuri was still doing his research. He did not want any evidence being lost or disturbed by anything or anyone. Urahara had also come and done some test on the area. They were all able to conclude that Shudera had been in the area when the explosion went off. She was most likely caught within the blast. Because of the range and destructiveness of the blast, they did not believe that she had survived. There was no trace of her surviving the blast. There was also evidence that the blast was created by Naruto's Reisu. It seemed that it had just exploded within him, resulting in the explosion. Most likely, he should have died, but no one was sure if he was dead or alive. But what was given was that even if he had survived, he would never be the same again. He definitely could have not escaped unscratched. By all accounts, he should have died, but with Naruto, you could never know. Anohana was sure he was still alive. He had to be. But she was sure that the explosion was not in his plans. She was sure that Shudera was supposed to be alive. If he was still alive, the mood and attitude he will return in will be nasty. If things had gone so bad that he was nearly killed, he was certainly going to be in a foul mood. Not to mention that Shudera was probably dead. She was not sure of that. But Naruto alone could have survived the blast. Just before the explosion set off, Anohana had been here at this place. She was talking to both Naruto and Shudera. Naruto seemed like he was busy going to do something good, something that made him happy. She didn't think that this was the results of it all. If Naruto had not sent her away, she may have been most likely caught in the explosion. Anohana feared for the safety of the world if someone had tried to kill him. Naruto had much control over his riot, so, even if he didn't have complete over it, he would never lose control over it. And something as it exploding within him would never be his cause. He could never make a mistake that would result in such a thing. Even if he had made one, the aftermath would have been calculated to make sure that he escaped unscathed and everyone close to the area was safe. But with all these, Anohana assumed that someone had tried to kill him. And she guessed, the Soul King knew something about it. The Royal Guard was very secretive about their investigation. Not even Yamamoto was told anything about it. Normally, after such an occurrence, they would have said something about the matter, or even share their findings to help them deal with the problem and understand what really happened. But they seemed to be in a hurry to report to the Soul King. Naruto had also mentioned that the Spirit King wanted to kill him, but he had mentioned a different way. But could this have resulted in the Soul King's intervention? Anohana did not know what to make of it. The only one who could fill her in was Naruto himself. But she did not know where he was. She had even used the little trick Naruto taught her to travel to Hueco Mundo to look for him, but she did not find him anywhere. What made it worse was that she was unable to see anything within the forest of death. The forest seemed empty, there were no hollows creeping by. The whole forest just reeked of death. The feeling made her uneasy when she had been searching. But her searches were fruitless, as she was unable to get anything. Whoever that had tried to kill him would surely pay. The death of Shutara was not something that the blonde would contend with, either. It would have been fine if it had been him who killed her, but someone had interfered in Naruto's process of releasing his full power. Had he been successful in his adventure, he would have been at his full power and lacking only Amaterasu. Without the blade, he would not have been to access some of his power despite it being available. The blade he held now was nothing compared to his original sword. He had said it so himself. Then again, Naruto says a lot of things that aren't true. You are worried about Naruto, Shunsui said as he entered Anohana's office within Squad 4 barracks. The woman had a thoughtful look on her face. She seemed to be busy contemplating something. It had been like this over the past days. He knew how close she was to the blonde. Anohana shook her head. I am not so much worried about what him, per se. I am much more worried about what he will do when he returns from wherever he is. When he returns. You believe he is still alive? Shunsui questioned as he took a seat. He looked at the captain straight in her face. He did not know what to believe in the matter. There was still a chance that the blonde might still be alive, but there was no evidence that he had survived the blast. I believe he is. If he was dead, I would know it. She had known him for over 2,000 years. Had he been dead, she would definitely know. He would not have died without telling her. And even if he had died, from what she knows from him, he would find a way to come back to life. He always had plans as precautions should things go wrong. But still, this time things had gone quite awry. She was sure even he had not expected such a thing to occur. I had a feeling that he was still alive too, Shunsui said in a resigned tone. He could never picture the blonde being killed by anything. He had seemed to be impossible to kill. The only he knew could keep him down was to seal him. I would not be surprised even if he just suddenly returns, the captain of the 8th Division admitted. While I do not doubt that he survived, I know that he did not survive without a scratch, Anohana stated. That was the truth. No matter how powerful Naruto was, he could not have survived that blast without suffering some sort of injury or anything threatening. It was probably the first that he experienced something that actually threatened his life, seriously. Shunsui nodded. Central 46 is already thinking of putting him down if he does return. But the decision is not yet final. Since they are entertaining the fact that he may still be alive, they want to know his state of power if he does return. Anohana did not comment on that, she remained quiet. Naruto would surely not lie down to be played given the irritable mood is surely going to have. How do you think that will end? Anohana finally responded with a question. Knowing that Naruto wasn't going to lie down, there was surely going to be chaos that would erupt if Central 46 decides to order them to get rid of Naruto. Not good, I guess. Regardless of what may have happened to him, Naruto is Naruto, and with him, you can never know. Shunsui shook his head. I wouldn't even be surprised if he comes back like nothing occurred. I wouldn't think that, Retsu said. Even if it was him, there was no way he was going to come back unscathed. Why did you come here? The elder captain questioned, knowing full well that this man had come here for a reason. Depending on what Central 46 says and how Naruto will be like when he returns, we may be forced to pick up our Zanpakuto to fight him. However, in doing so, we risk an attack from Aizen and his hollows, Shunsui started. I would rather not fight Naruto if it can't be helped. You've yet to state your reasons for coming here, Kiraku Teiko, Anohana said. Aside from anyone I know, you're the only who has a special relationship with him. How will you feel when we're forced to fight him? There was a high chance that he may return in a much weakened condition. If it is so, Central 46 won't waste the opportunity to put him down. In a weakened state than he was already, the likely outcome is his death or sealing. Shunsui was questioning what Anohana would do if things did not favor Naruto. Are you questioning my loyalty to Soul Society, Kiraku Teiko? Anohana questioned in that sweet tone of hers. And no, not at all, Shunsui said with a nervous smile on his face. I have no doubt about your loyalty towards Soul Society. I just want to know what you'll do. Naruto hasn't done anything wrong towards Soul Society that warrants his death. Even before, he never threatened the safety of this place. I see, Retsu paused for a moment. Because Naruto hasn't threatened the safety of this place and has never done so, you believe it wouldn't be right to do anything to him. Shunsui nodded. But I don't know how Naruto will react if they choose to put him down. Execution won't do, but before that they'll have to catch him first, which won't be easy to accomplish. Their likely choice is that they'll seal him in a prison of his own for all eternity. Anohana shook her head slightly. Do what you believe is right, while thinking for the safety of Soul Society. Las Noches. It has been a boring week in the home of the strongest beings currently living within the palace of the king. Hollows had branded Aizen as the king of Hueco Mundo. There was also the fact that this place was once ruled by Baragan before Aizen robbed him of his crown and throne. Jin had never been so bored in his life. There was nothing better to do. If the Espadas had been active, it would have been better since he would amuse himself by watching Aizen easily manipulate them. But there was nothing of that sort in these days. It was getting annoying to live in this place given that Aizen had put on hold all his plans. The hollow activity had been slow over the past days as the ones that were experimented on by Aizen were kept locked. He was even thinking to going to Soul Society just to relieve himself on his boredom. Turning around, Jin saw Aizen walking towards him with that same sly smile he always wore. If he had been someone else, he would have been unnerved just by looking at the smile. But he had his own smile, thus he merely grinned as the former captain got closer to him. Why are you so interested in seeing in Uchiha Teiko is still alive, Aizen Teiko? Aren't you also interested, Jin? Aizen asked quietly, looking straight at his subordinate, his smile never leaving his face. I am, Jin admitted with a quick nod. But my interest in him would not have been enough to stop everything I was doing like you have. Aizen had put on hold all his plans as he waited to find out more about Naruto. No one has currently been able to find anything. But there is a wind flying about that the man survived the explosion. Jin did not think that anyone would have survived an explosion of that magnitude. After seeing its destruction, he doubted that anyone would have survived. But Aizen has said that he believes the older Shinigami may still be alive. I have not quite stopped everything, Jin, Aizen corrected, drawing the former captain of the Godai 13 attention to him. But the former 5th Division captain only said a few words to elaborate. I have been doing more work on my own. You also are aware that the Royal Guard was in Soul Society to investigate the matter. Who is to say that they won't show up when he returns? The Hogyaku has also not fully awakened, so there is no need to rush things. Well, that wasn't entirely true, but Jin didn't need to know that. Okay, maybe those were not few words. What have you been planning, Aizen Teiko? Jin asked with narrowed eyes. But Aizen could not see that, possibly he could feel it, since he was no longer looking straight at Jin. The man had turned his eyes somewhere else. Aizen merely gave that smile that always told you that you were not going to be told anything. Nothing to worry about, Jin. Sighing, Jin questioned the former captain again. Why are you so confident that he will return? Because I know he survived. That man is always prepared for anything. There is no one in Soul Society who can plot his downfall. He is very different from Yamamoto, who usually uses brute force to enforce things. That man rarely draws out his sword, he uses his mind more than his blade. I know that even if we had attempted to kill him when he had come here, he would have left without an injury, or revealing much about his abilities, Aizen explained. I doubt even the senior captains believe he is dead. What will his return benefit you? Aizen merely turned to give Jin a smile, but he turned around to leave. You shall see, Jin. When he returns, he will take more interest in my plans than he had been, the man responded as he left, but Jin followed him from behind. What makes you say that, Aizen Teiko? Well, it would be more interesting to him, Jin, if the man somehow survived the impossible. Even though he doubted that he could have survived, a part of him wished he survived. But he was more interested in what Aizen was planning. Central 46 will most likely try to imprison him when he returns. No, they will try to do it. But he won't allow them to do so. Depending on his state when he does return, he will either leave after some trouble or smoothly, Aizen explained as he made his way towards the room the Hogyaku was located. So the captains will be after him. That means that he will no longer move freely in Soul Society. But he can do as he pleases in the human world as they are not always crawling there, the Shinigami I mean, Jin said. Aizen nodded. However, the human world is not the likely destination for him. Hueco Mundo has always been his home, and since his own home in this world disappeared, he will have to come here. We may even have to prepare a room for him. Do you think he will actually join you? Not at all, Aizen said smiling. The explosion must have left him weakened, and he will most likely come here to regain his strength. However, regaining his strength will be what he is after when coming here. And the Hogyaka reacted strongly to his presence when he came here. I'm more interested on how it will react to his presence again, and that man can make things easy for me. Aren't you playing it a bit dangerously, Aizen Teiko? Won't he steal it if he gets close to it? Jin questioned. Aizen was gambling here. If that man wanted to restore himself and the Hogyaka was his ticket, then he would definitely try to take it. Aizen merely smiled. I never said anything about getting him that close to the Hogyaku. Unknown location. He had never thought that he would ever find himself in that kind of situation. He had never experienced fear in this life. But yet he felt it. Death had been grinning at him madly. It had its fangs all over him, yet he survived. He was surely not meant to survive the blast. This was the second time that woman had cursed his life, the second time she had screwed him. Each time he could do nothing against her. The first time had been because he had hesitated to do anything against her. He certainly had the power to fend her off. But this time, he had been powerless. How could she have so much power over him when he was stronger than her? Questions aside, the cursed death had been defeated, yet again. Yes, he had defeated death, even when it had him locked in a corner, its fangs draining out his life force. He had survived. Snapping his eyes open, Naruto quickly noticed that his right eye was not functioning. There was no doubt about it. He also could not feel anything in the eye socket. It was like there was nothing there. He placed his right hand there. But he only found a soft fabric bandaging his hand, even his fingers. He could not see his skin. He quickly scanned his body. That is when he realized that his entire body had been covered in bandages. He could not see his skin. Still, all his limbs had regrown. He turned to look at the figures beside the bed he was lying on. What happened? He demanded in a firm tone. After the explosion, we retrieved you, what was left of you rather. We then took you to Eden, but there was nothing there. The well had disappeared along with she. With the well gone, we brought you to this dimension and tended to you while you regenerated. How long? A full week in Soul Society time, but a full month in the time of this dimension. Why am I still in bandages? Your regeneration had been slow. And when you had fully regenerated, your body was still covered in 4th-degree burns. We do not understand why your body regenerated like that. But we believe that after some time, you will recover fully. The only thing you need is the right energy. Naruto sat up from his bed. He looked around the place before nodding to himself inwardly. The fountain of life was gone. He could not understand how that came to be. Could it be that he has lost too much power? Could it be that it was gone because of his near death? Whatever the reason was, it held little importance since the well was already gone. Given how weak he felt, he could not recreate it. It was impossible for him to create it again. But if it had been there, his body would have recovered. His soul was complete, but given the circumstances, regaining his power looked to be a daunting task, even for him. The power he had lost could not be regained easily. 100 years long sleep would replenish all the blown-up energy he'd lost. Retrieving Amaterasu would help him. With Amaterasu, he could go to heaven. Time moved a little faster than this dimension. But he didn't want to wait 100 years to recover. He wanted his recovery to be quickly and he would recover quickly. Master, if I may, how did you survive that explosion? I should have died. That woman wanted to erase my soul from existence, but she made 2 mistakes. She used my own Ryotsu to create the explosion and she also brought my other half close to me. I was the only one who was immobile, not my other half. When the explosion started, it tore through the shackles that were binding him, freeing him. Since he wasn't restricted by anything, contact with me united us. You can say for a brief second I had returned to my prime. But I still could use my power, so I sacrificed my right eye to save my soul, Naruto said, stretching out his hands. If my other half had been further away from me, all my Reisu would have disappeared along with the explosion, and even if I had survived, I would have lost the ability to produce spiritual energy. I would have become a normal human without the well to restore me. He guessed this is what she meant, that he wouldn't be able to use his power even if he did survive and that he would only live for a short time. Even though he sacrificed his right eye to protect his soul, he had lost much already. The blonde then looked at the figures before him. Have you located Amaterasu? Yes, the Soul King has decided to return to his cage and sleep after the explosion. The royal guards, who have been overseeing her since your return, had left his dimension, so we were able to use this to our advantage and take it away while they were away. Still, that fool should have known you entered his dimension. I see, he allowed you to take it. The fool has grown some balls to allow something like that to happen. Does he feel strong enough to think he can defeat me at my full power? Naruto responded, sounding amused. But given my state, the children will certainly embarrass me, that is if I don't get any energy. He sat down at the bed and examined his body further before a foreign expression settled on his face, a frown. Was this all because of his arrogance? You need not to worry about that, master. We have prepared a meal for you. However, given your state, it is highly unlikely that you will consume it all. But what you will eat will be enough to avoid any humiliation in the hands of children. No, I don't need to consume any of it, Naruto said, hiding his left eye with his right hand. I will turn all the Ryotsu as a form of a charger to replenish my Reisu. When I do that, I will speed up the recovery of my body. Should you be using your body if you want it to recover? It makes no difference if I use it or not. If I replenish a small portion of my energy, and I will recover to a level that is acceptable. Besides, it is good to allow everyone to think that I can't hold a candle against Yamamoto. Soul Society. Naruto looked down at the large crater with an impassive look on his face. This was the place his house once was laid upon. He had spent many nights in the place. All the research and important things had been within the place in his underground laboratory. This was not only his lost entries, everything in Eden was gone. Everything that was left now was his mind and his will. He still possessed the knowledge within his mind, but given how long he has lived, he had preferred to keep some things in writing to avoid getting a headache while trying to recall things hidden some other memories. It was quite remarkable that he had survived. He could see it with his own eyes. The pain had been extreme. His own Reisu had blown him up from inside, that had to be painful. It was a pity that the engineer of the blast was dead. It would also take some time for him to get her back to the living. But he knew people from the royal family always left something behind. If it had been anyone, it would have been near impossible to bring her back to life. He would not be even thinking about it. But because she is from that line and her majestic knowledge in Kidu, he knew he could recreate her soul. She would answer to him. He had hated her when the memories came to him, when he remembered that she sealed him and shipped him here. He hated her even more when he learned that she had sealed some of his power. But he had never thought of tearing her body into pieces. Perhaps he had finally reached the limit. She has done some unforgivable things towards him that even her late husband did not and could not. The thing that made it even worse back then was that he couldn't even remember her name back then. But it came back to him and all the time he spent with her. That woman had killed Shudera and left him knocking in the doors of death. Such an act was unforgivable. He could not forgive her. He did not care for her reasons. Brining him to this kind of situation was blasphemy. He knew that the woman could do anything she set her mind to do. But he had never thought she would do something like that to him, not after everything. He should have expected it though. She had smiled at him, sadly, when she sealed him the first time. She had promised to do it again if they met again. Though she did not seal him, she nearly killed him. Even when it pained her, she almost killed him. That woman was anything but cruel. She had always worn a warm smile and was full of kindness. He had never seen anyone so kind-hearted in all his life before he met her. She could not even kill a fly. He doubted there was anyone who could match the warmth she always carried. Even his cold and lifeless eyes had gained life upon interacting with her a bit more. She taught him to love. He could never get mad at her during those days. But she did it to him anyway. She also killed someone while doing it, just so she could erase his existence. Did she really feel that threatened by his power that she did not wish to see him live further? No, that was not it. She knew him better, even better than Anohana. She could read him even when everyone failed to do so. Perhaps there was something else she saw. But he did not care for that. She was dead, for the moment. He could care less for her reasons. The thing was that she had attempted to kill him and also killed Shudera. The thing that mattered was that she had betrayed his trust, no once but twice. He had no doubt that she would do it again if given the chance. But when he does bring her back to life, he would not give her that chance. He would bring to her about a proper punishment for her betrayal. Now that he thought of it, she was not afraid of death. Tearing every part of her body apart would not do it. This is a rare sight, a voice stated coming from behind him. Anohana, Naruto acknowledged with a tone of indifference. Anohana was quick to notice that. He also rarely called her Anohana. It was always Retsu, and Yachiroa. And when he turned around to face her, she quickly noticed that his entire body, up until his neck, was bandaged except for his left eye, which also looked different. It also seemed a lot colder than usual. Other than that, she could not read anything from his face given the impassiveness that glorified it. There was also that he was wearing a white cloak, with bandages underneath it. She was quick to conclude that they were all over his body. He was not wearing his captain's haori. She did not dwell on the thought though. I have never seen you stare at a single place for that long, Anohana continued from her previous sentence. Her tone did not suggest anything. Neither was her expression. But the usual smile she always wore was nothing but a memory now. Naruto was silent for a few moments. He had not realized that he had been staring at the large crater beneath him. She must have noticed his presence when he entered the barrier around the crater. He could see that the barrier was her work. She was far more adept to Kido and Hado than anyone else in Soul Society. You are not surprised about my survival. You seem to have been expecting my return. The moment you saw that the bandages were all over my body, your smile disappeared. He walked closer to her until he was just a few inches away from her. I did not know that you worried about me like that, Yachiroa. He did not even sound amused by that. There was nothing but coldness in his tone. It was just contradicting his statement. He had never spoken to her like that. If Anohana was not worried before, now she was worried. I am not the only one who believed you were still alive. She then noticed something she had missed. He was carrying a katana she recognized. But her eyes refused to widen in surprise. She also did not comment on it. I would imagine so, Naruto responded calmly, keeping the short distance between him and Anohana. What happened? She got to what was bothering her carefully. It was best to question it since the blonde did not seem like he was going to share it with her. She did not bother with questions like where he was and how he is doing. She could perfectly see how well he is. She could clearly feel that he was not well by his standards. A woman I trusted, even more than you tried to kill me. It is a pity that Shudera was caught in the middle of it. He sounded so indifferent, like he was not concerned or bitter about it. I wonder though, if you will betray me like she did. She did not know this other woman. It was definitely not Shudera. That woman would never attempt to end Naruto's life. Sealing him and ending his life were two different things, and she knew that Shudera would never follow the latter. Anohana could not even guess who this other woman was. She did not know there was someone that Naruto trusted except for her and the dead Shudera. Who could this woman be to bring the blonde in such a state? It is indeed a pity, Anohana said, commenting on Shudera. Now it was clear. Naruto had not made a miscalculation in his plans to free himself. Someone had tried to kill him while doing so. It was also difficult to tell how he felt about the death of his love. But one thing was obvious to her, Naruto was not a happy person. So you were not able to recover fully. But it seems that you have your Zanpakuto back. Naruto's eyes seemed to get a little darker. Yes, Amaterasu was retrieved. The blonde then paused for a moment. I will take my leave now, Anohana. But I will see you tomorrow, emergency calls. He was gone after that. The following day. Things have changed so drastically. It had been a long time since he felt so empty. Naruto had never thought that he would ever experience such emptiness again in his life. He had experienced it before. The feeling felt foreign, but it was real. He was experiencing it, all because he had trusted her. When he saw her, she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Even his cold heart that knew not love began to like her. The heart that cared for nothing learned to care because of her. Ironic that she was the one to give him all these emotions and be the one to take them away. Perhaps it was some punishment for falling in love and sleeping the mother of the child you were supposed to look after and the wife of someone who took you up to his own family and gave you his name. The Soul King must have been rejoicing knowing that his mother finally hurt him severely. She had seemed to be incapable of doing it back in those days. He still remembered the look that Fool gave him when he found him in his mother's bed. He was furious. Perhaps it was because he had been a mere child back then. Yes, he was a Gaki who could not understand how his older brother could sleep with their mother. There was also the fact that Amaya spent much time with him than her own son. The fool had held a grudge against him since then. But it disappeared as the fool matured and he basically stopped caring about what his mother did. After that, they got along fairly well. The Soul King's father had already died before that. The man took him to his family when he was lying in a deathbed. He had used some technique to direct him to his family. He did not live for long after that. The last thing he had requested for him was to take care of his family. He did take care of the royal family back then. But things changed when both mother and son saw the extent of his power. Naruto never did fight with them, even when the son stopped smiling as he usually did after he, Naruto, had ascended to glory. He could never deny that the fool was the rightful owner of the glory. But he was weak and foolish. And the previous owner had elected him to occupy the place until he felt that the fool was ready for the responsibility. So much for everything he had gone through with the royal family. But he was not crying. He would reunite mother and son again. That Amaya, he smiled bitterly at the thought. You know, it's quite depressing seeing you think like this, Amaterasu stated, sounding a little bored. Really, she had never seen the blonde think like this. In all her times with him, he never thought bitterly. There was some anger towards Amaya, but he was never so bitter about her. She never did know his interactions with the woman. Naruto did not use a Zanpakuto before her. So she did not know everything. Depressing, huh? Naruto responded. His thought voice was just like the whisper of death. I never thought you would say such a word towards me, the blonde stated. Neither did I, but a lot of things have been happening that neither of us ever thought they would, the Zanpakuto spirit responded coolly. This was one that had gone really bad. Amaterasu never thought that Naruto would be brought to such a state given all the power he used to have. Perhaps this was the result of his ignorance. Though she would never say it aloud, there was no one who was ignorant as her wielder. With Naruto, it stemmed from the fact that he was superior to any being. Since he had no equal, he felt that everyone else was below him and never considered anyone to be a threat. Calling other souls or beings children wasn't because he was older than them, it was simply because he saw them as mere children when it came to power. If they were mere children, why the need to think highly of them? Such was his problem. Well, it worked well for him back then because he used his mind more often than he does now. Perhaps it was because the Shinigami of that generation were seriously strong. The captains of today are nothing compared to the captains of those good days. Perhaps Naruto felt that he didn't need to think because the level had dropped and he was still God. Things are bound to change after this experience that nearly killed him though. You are indeed right, Naruto said with a sigh. Everything had spiraled out of his control. He took pride in being able to control things that happened around him. He had manipulated the events of the past to working well for him now. They had indeed, but there was one thing he did not expect. He couldn't control it, he couldn't do anything to stop it. That was the harsh reality. The unexpected had occurred for the second time. The first time something happened to his body that was out of his control had worked well for him. He didn't complain much since it was basically him who changed things. But this time, it was that woman and she had literally brought him to his knees. Instead of your depressing thoughts, how about we move on to how to get you to recover? You know that if your body remains as it is you won't be able to become any powerful. You now have limits, something you did not have before, Amaterasu explained sounding a little serious about the matter. Naruto was her wielder, she liked him almighty and powerful. She certainly would not be happy if he was being pushed back by beings he would not have even bothered to draw out his sword at in the old days. Everything is in motion, Amaterasu. You were still cut off from me when everything was set. My body is already recovering, and everything will be remedied soon, very soon. This time, there won't be anything standing in the way. What of Shudera? She was dead, Amaterasu knew it, but Naruto wasn't saying anything about it to her. Normally he would confide in her about such matters, but he wasn't saying anything. It was almost like he didn't care about what happened to her. Shudera is unexpectedly dead. There is nothing more or less to it. I can't do anything about her death anyway, Naruto gave his response without so much as taking a second to think of a proper replay. Ah, you have closed yourself again, Amaterasu commented dryly. Naruto ignored the comment though. The blonde narrowed his eyes in all directions. He sensed that the captains were coming to him in all directions. He certainly could not outrun them all. And he could not fight them all. But he still had a few tricks up his sleeve. The problem was that his tricks had limits, It was not dangerous when his opponents did not know the limits. However, if they were to be aware of the limits, it would be dangerous for him. Still, Naruto did not fear anything. They were mere children after all. What was there to fear? One by one, the captains flashed around him and all stood still around him. Naruto made no attempt to move. He acted as though he did not feel their presence. He noticed that Anohana was among them. Normally she would not have bothered to venture in this party. Perhaps Central 46 were behind her presence here. Those fools could be a little demanding and annoying at times. However, the woman was not the one to cave into pressure. In some regards, she was rather forceful like Shutara had been. He also noticed that Urahara was amongst the captains. It was no doubt that the strongest had been gathered to get to him. He could see the smirk on Swafon's face. She seemed rather pleased about something. The children could smell blood. Naruto shook his head inwardly. When children smelled blood, they really got to his nerves as they were always relentless. Sometimes it made him feel like snapping their necks and be over with it. It was certain that this was going to be bothersome. Yamamoto stepped up. Uchiha Naruto, by order of Central 46, you are to come with us to be judged. Naruto did not move for a moment. He finally turned around to look at a stern-faced Yamamoto. You are looking down on me because you feel you are more powerful than me. These foolish children now feel confident because they think they can actually defeat me. He could see that Yamamoto seemed happy about something, but even though they could smell blood, even though he was this weakened, Naruto couldn't be defeated that easily, especially not by mere children who only had 100 years under their belt. We don't think we can defeat you. We know we can. But if you have difficulty in accepting that, we will have no trouble in showing it to you that you are weak and pathetic. There is nothing left of you other than your mouth, ego, and pride. I might just step up and kick you down just to ensure that pride of yours is knocked down to the ground and you are kneeling before me, Swafon responded, ever so arrogantly. She believed she could take the blonde on. He looked nothing more than a mummy. The little fly has now become a dog and is now barking. Naruto responded, not sounding the least amused. His words were just cold as steel. Yamamoto just let this continue to see how Naruto could react if Swafon continued to antagonize him further. Swafon held herself well. At least I am not reduced to a mummy. I do wonder what is under those bandages. Perhaps I am barking because I smell a cold steak under those bandages. Her smug look never left her. It seemed that she had been practicing well. She makes fun of Uchiha Naruto. I don't like children who give me that attitude. He paused for a moment looking straight at Swafon. You have less than a month to live, child. I've decided, and nothing will change that. Not Yamamoto, not Central 46, not even the Royal Guard will stand in the way of your inevitable death. It was not that Yamamoto enjoyed hearing Naruto threaten his subordinates. It was just that something about the blonde disturbed him greatly. No one spoke or moved when the blonde was speaking. The tone Naruto used is so chilling that he could see that Swafon had frozen over the chilling sound of the voice. He did not doubt that most of the captains had felt chills run about their spines. He could feel that the blonde very well intended to keep that threat. Perhaps it was not a good idea to allow Swafon to open her mouth. Still, Naruto had never resorted to such methods when insulted. Insults were something he found to be amusing. Even when threatened, he found it all to be amusing. In all these 1,000 years Yamamoto had known Naruto, he'd never heard him make such a threat. Despite the sudden chill in her, Swafon quickly shook off the coldness in her before taunting Naruto. I would like to see you try. You know what? You are welcome to try now, there is nothing stopping you from doing what you wish. Shunsui shook his head. Swafon was taking it too far and she did not want an angry Naruto to deal with. If she kept pushing, Naruto may very well attempt to kill her now. And if Naruto wanted her dead, she would die one way or the other. Well, not unless he could help it. Don't take it too far, Swafon Teiko, you don't want to be faced with an angry Naruto. Although he was sure the younger captains may not be feeling it, Naruto's Reisu felt much stronger than before. Not even before he was sealed did it feel so powerful. It was powerful, but it wasn't that much, otherwise they could all feel it. This only raised questions inside Shunsui's head about the incident that occurred a week ago. Another thing that made him cautious was the hilt of the blade around his waist. Shunsui knew which Zanpakuto it was. How Naruto came into possession of it was a mystery to him. Swafon snorted. Even if he gets angry, what can he do? He didn't feel as strong as he was weeks ago. She felt it in her blood that she could toy with him and smack him around. You don't really want to find out, Yokotake said with a small smile on his face. An angry Naruto was something he'd only seen once, and he didn't to see him in that state again. It was rare to see him angry though, but when he did get mad, things tended to be nasty. I would like to see him mad just to see what Hsyfon was cut off when Naruto suddenly appeared in front of her. The look on his face was nothing but plain impassiveness, and his left eye seemed to have gained a new glint as it was spinning slowly, hypnotically. His cold breath washed over her face like an unwanted cold breeze. The thing that scared Hsyfon was the dense Ryutsu that was strangling her. She started feeling it when his right hand touched the hilt of his Zanpakuto. I can always fast forward your inevitable death, if you so wish, he said. Do you perhaps wish to test my flames? A cloud of smoke began to gather under, making Hsyfon move away from him. Enough of this. Yamamoto said firmly, bringing everyone to his attention. He moved closer to Naruto before studying the blonde carefully. He could fully well recognize the handle of Amaterasu. But that did not change the fact that the blonde was weak. He was even tempted to humiliate the blonde in front of the younger captains. But it would not end well if he did that. Such a thing would be blasphemy towards the blonde. But, even he could sense that Naruto's Reisu had become even denser, much more than anything else. Knowing Naruto, he wouldn't even have come here in the open if he didn't trust himself. For this reason, Yamamoto was cautious. He was afraid to believe that Naruto was even more dangerous in this kind of situation. Still, there was only one way to find out. Tempting is it not? Naruto questioned, having noticed that the captain commander was holding his staff firmly. He could only suspect that the man was tempted to humiliate him. But even he knew that it would not end well. Uchiha Naruto did not forgive such blasphemy. It is indeed. But I can wait, Yamamoto responded calmly. Now, will you follow me to Central 46 or will you suffer the embarrassment of being dragged there like a foolish child? Naruto folded his hands across his chest. Lead the way. A wise choice. Though, I must admit, I was looking forward to dragging you towards Central 46, Yamamoto admitted, but he was ignored by Naruto. The other captains went their way as Naruto followed Yamamoto towards Central 46. They'd only been present to ensure that Naruto went with Yamamoto as there was a chance that he would refuse. In case a scenario such as that occurred, they would have been forced to use force to drag the blonde towards C46. Central 46. I trust you will behave, Yamamoto said, stern-faced. He didn't want Naruto to do anything unnecessary that would only cause him a headache. He had enough problems dealing with the mess Naruto had created a week ago. I will do what I can, Naruto said as he entered the center of Central 46. His persecutors came into view, all looking at him coldly. Naruto stopped in the middle of the court, with Yamamoto a few feet away from him. I see you didn't put a fight before coming here, one of the members of the court said mildly. Honestly, he would have liked it if he had put up a fight so they could see just how powerful he was. There was no need to draw out my sword when I was only needed to appear before you, people, Naruto responded calmly. It could be that you just feared the might of the Goatee I-13, another said aloud. It is a bit of a surprise to see you alive. I would have liked it if you'd just disappeared along with your house. A few nods of agreement followed after those words. It is unfortunate that I survived then, Naruto responded, surprising everyone. They weren't expecting him to give such a light comment. It was actually a surprise to Yamamoto that he'd yet sprout insults at Central 46. Regardless, it appears you did not escape without a scratch, a wise mature voice stated calmly. Apparently, Naruto didn't deny anything. I believe you called me here to say something else other than this uninteresting subject. If I'm wrong, then you'll have to excuse me, I don't have the time and energy to entertain you. Naruto's words were greeted by silence. It didn't last long as someone spoke. Explain to us what happened. What caused that explosion and where is Shutara? The royal guard came here and investigated, yet they didn't tell you a thing. It must be frustrating for the likes of you to have been left out like that. Naruto only earned himself glares from the court. The fact that they didn't tell you anything only leads me to one conclusion, it is above your pay grade to know the details of the incidents. Bastard. Do you know who you're talking to? You fool, we are Central 46 and rule over Soul Society. Nothing is above our pay grade. Yes, you say that, but the reality is that they didn't tell you anything. Not a damn thing. Curses were thrown at Naruto before a smooth voice silenced the court. It is indeed true that the royal guard didn't tell us anything, but it could be that they knew we would force answers from you. Of course, for them to think like that they had to have assumed that you were still alive. Even he knew that it wasn't like that. But hoped to see how smart Naruto was. The member of C-46 thought that the royal guard knew that even they tried to get answers from Naruto, the blonde would only tell them what he wanted them to know. Still, what if Naruto told them things that made the royal family look bad? What could they gain by allowing something like that to happen? Only speculation can only be made at this point, Naruto said. He then asked another question. Despite what you say, you asked them about their findings, and what was their response? No one spoke for a few moments. I see, Naruto said. So even when they refused to tell you anything, you still go behind the royal family's back to get answers to satisfy your own curiosity. I do wonder what the Spirit King will do when he realizes that you're trying to get answers he hid from you. Silence settled in before someone spoke. Regardless, there was no specific order barring us from demanding answers from you. So there is no wrong in what we are doing. I also believe that the incident is important enough to warrant our need for answers. Naruto adopted a thinking pose before he responded. If you can give me a satisfying reason to this question, I will accept anything you say. Yamamoto says you want to judge me, so I must ask, what wrong have I done? You have threatened the safety of Soul Society. By doing what exactly? This explosion that occurred recently, it threatened our safety and killed one of our captains. This is not the first incident you've caused, there was that one in the execution grounds, and your other actions have not benefited us with anything. We've already dealt with the first explosion, and it wasn't a threat to anyone, you know this. The second explosion may have shaken Soul Society, but I can say that I wasn't the one who caused it. Someone old from the royal family caused it, so technically, it is the royal family who thr. Do not dare blabber such nonsense. The atmosphere became tense and the air became heavy. Yamamoto got ready to act, but Naruto didn't do anything, he just spoke. Shut up, I was still talking, Naruto said in a deathly silent tone. Do no refute what you do not know, you foolish monkey. There only one speaking blasphemy is you saying I'm lying. Naruto paused for a moment before continuing. As I was saying, it is technically the royal family who threatened Soul Society and killed Shudera, and I don't remember doing anything that has threatened the safety of this place. If you believe I'm wrong, then show me exactly what I did wrong. If you can't, then perhaps, I should be the one to judge you. Naruto took out Amaterasu and held her in a vertical position in front of him, the tip of the blade pointing upwards. Black flames begun to seep out of his blade. It had been so many years since Yamamoto saw those flames, the black flames of Amaterasu that could rival Ryujinjaka's flames. He prided himself with his Zanpakuto as the most powerful blade to have ever existed in Soul Society. But that was just a saying. It was the same as saying there has never been anyone born in Soul Society who was stronger than him. Well, in actuality that was the truth, since Naruto wasn't born in this world, he was sure of it. Naruto had always been someone who could rival him, someone who he could never actually say he could beat down in a straight fight if the blonde was fighting him a bit more seriously. The first time they'd actually fought, he'd seen what the blonde was capable of doing, he'd seen the power of that cursed blade he so cherished. When he was returned to the living, he had thought he would never see those flames again. But here he was seeing those flames. Although he knew it wasn't a good thing, Yamamoto felt a bit excited inside of him to be finally able to see those flames. Perhaps it was because over the years he's never had anyone who could actually better him in a battle. However, the current Naruto wasn't like the former. Yamamoto was forced to think otherwise when a black cloud gathered around Naruto's feet while his blade continued to pour out the black flames. Although Naruto didn't contain as much Ryutsu as he did, this power felt denser than before. He wasn't like a nuclear bomb at this level, but that didn't decrease just how deadly he was. Naruto of the old had many bullets to shoot and kill, but this one had little silver bullets, but they could kill with just one shot. The feeling that Yamamoto felt when those flames started leaking out made his blade tremble in pure anticipation. The whole of Central 46 was shouting for him to do something before the blonde raised his blade against them. Naruto, Yamamoto growled as Ryujinjaka's flames exploded in a blitz, putting the members of Central 46 in disarray under of the pressure of his and Naruto's flames. What do you think you're going Naruto turned to face the captain commander with a blank look on his face. "Oh, Yamamoto, you're still here. I'd thought you had gone back to your barracks to get some sleep. Old age isn't treating you well, after all," the former god of Hueco Mundo stated ever so lightly. How could he be so calm when he was weak? How could he do something so rash when he knew he would have all of Soul Society on his path, and given his current state, he couldn't possibly take them all. If he tried, it would mean the death of him, if he could be killed, that is. The blade of his Zanpakuto was alight in a heap of intense flames as Yamamoto walked slowly towards Naruto. "Do you really want a beating that badly? You seem hesitant, Yamamoto," Naruto stated calmly. The way the blonde was talking and the way he was so calm was making Yamamoto feel an itch over his back. What was happening here? "You know I'm not stronger as I was back then, but something about me makes you cautious." Yamamoto narrowed his eyes. "I am not hesitating, this is a sacred place that I do not wish to violate. And besides, if we were to clash out swords here, these people would certainly die. I would rather not have the deaths of Central 46 members on me." "Since when do you care for such pathetic excuses of living creatures, Genri Yusai?" Naruto asked with a small smile that just seemed out of place. The members of the court could hear him well enough, but the tense atmosphere didn't allow them to speak. "It is all right, Yamamoto, I will give you what you want, Shikashi, first thing first." Naruto held Amaterasu to his right side before bringing her to the left. The flames that were seeping out of blade had now faded away. Before Naruto could swing his blade in one swift movement that could have destroyed the inner court, Yamamoto dashed right in front of the blonde with unbelievable speed and parried Naruto's swing with his own blade, which was still bleeding out sun flames. The collision of their blades forced the ground beneath to shatter under the pure force of both swings. "Ho!" Naruto raised a brow as he found himself being pushed back by the sheer physical power of Yamamoto. "Your physical strength never ceases to amaze me, Yamamoto. If you'd given such strength to Yukatake, he wouldn't be pathetic like he is now." Despite the fact that Naruto was the one who had actually swung his blade, with so much force that Yamamoto was sure even a lieutenant wouldn't have been able to successfully block, he still pushed the Uchiha back because of his overwhelming physical prowess. Naruto wanted to annihilate Central 46 with the swing he'd blocked, Yamamoto was sure of it. "If you'd actually listened, you wouldn't be in this position. Your swing feels weak, and I can overpower you more than this," Yamamoto stated. To prove this, he pushed Naruto back further. But was a little unnerved when Naruto did nothing but smile. "Yes, my body is rather weak, I can't compete with you. If we were to go out on an all-out war, I would lose." Naruto still smiled despite his words. "But, I will still annihilate these foolish souls who have no role in this world. Quite honestly, I find this court to be a nuisance, and I will see that it is never built again." "What can you do in this state?" Naruto's left eye morphed into the Rinnegan, surprising Yamamoto as he hadn't seen the eye in more than 1,000 years. "I don't need to overpower you to destroy this place, Yamamoto," Naruto said as black flames began to pour out of his blade. "Shinra Tensei." As soon as the words left his mouth, the whole of Central 46 exploded into a heap of debris. The explosion shook Siriti as causing everyone to stand still and wonder what the hell was going on. Explosions had been setting off recently, making it a bit dangerous to live in such a place. The explosion was different though, it wasn't an explosion of Reisu, it was like a bomb had detonated. Soul Reapers took their turns, most of the captains and lieutenants surrounded what used to be Central 46, there was nothing but a large crater in the whole area and a bit of black flames dancing wildly around the area. Only Naruto was standing in the middle of the crater. Shunsui shook his head seeing that it had come to such a point. A few moments earlier, Naruto didn't look he was going to fight anyone, he appeared like he was just going to accept what was going to be given to him as punishment, as long as he found it to be acceptable. He didn't put a fight when Yamamoto requested that he go with him to this place. But now this? What could have happened that actually changed things? Naruto wasn't strong enough to fight them all, and this would eventually be his downfall if he doesn't have anything planned. But, Yamamoto wasn't going to be happy about this. And he wouldn't allow anyone to stand in the way of punishing the blonde for this transgression. On cue, Yamamoto's Reisu hit everyone, forcing the lower ranked to fall down their knees under the heavy weight of the captain commander's spiritual pressure. "Oh, now he has done it, Yamajiji is actually pissed," Shunsui said sighing, as though this wasn't much of a big deal. "I'd say he's more excited than pissed," Kenpeka said with a grin on his face. The pressure of the Captain Commander's Reisu was so intoxicating to him, he felt like drawing out his blade and lunge at the old man for some fun. Cough, he is right, you know, Yukatake said looking at the burning figure of Yamamoto. The old man wasn't actually pissed, no, he was excited. Yukatake could feel it in the air that his former sensei was actually happy that he could get to cross blades with Naruto again. But fighting here will only put others in danger, Yukatake added. Just then, Yamamoto disappeared in some unbelievable show of shunpo. He cleared the distance towards a favorable place to do battle. It looks like he is aware of it, Toshiro said. He was actually interested in seeing how the battle between Naruto and Yamamoto would play out. But I do wonder about him, he said looking down at Naruto, who was still in the middle of the crater. Naruto picked up Amaterasu from the ground calmly as the captains of the Godei 13 flashed around him. This body can't even handle a Shinra Tensei, and I feel like it is about to break apart. I will have to remedy this, he thought, knowing that the only reason he'd dropped the blade was because his body felt crushed under the technique despite it not affecting him in the same way it does to his surroundings. The blonde looked up into the blue sky as Shunsui stepped forward. "You're really going at it, aren't you?" he said. He still didn't wait for a response before he asked another question. "Why? When I was faced with those fools with mockery for authority, something clicked inside of me and I asked myself, what am I doing? You see, Shunsui, ever since I returned I've been nothing but forgiving and dismissive towards those who look down on me. Often those fools said I did wrong and I would play along with it. But I've decided that I'll no longer forgive blasphemy, and why allow fools who have no actual power to dictate those with power? Central 46 have no use other than to serve the pride and self-fulfillment of its members. They might have been the governing body, but they are nothing but insects that I could no longer allow to exist in my presence, and so I got rid of them." Naruto gave his light explanation. There was the fact that he was whole again, despite the lack of power. Even so, he could do whatsoever he wanted to do. Was it really necessary to rid of them though? I do agree that sometimes Central 46 decisions are unjust, but killing them all isn't the answer, Yukatake argued firmly. Sprouting this kind of nonsense is one of the reasons I preferred to be alone than share a bottle of sake with you, Jushiro, Naruto stated mildly. Well then, I shouldn't keep Yamamoto waiting. Who knows, he might die of old age while I talk to you. With that, Naruto disappeared in a swirling vortex. Well, I'm following them, I want to watch this, Toshiro said as he appeared to be ready to leave. Yamamoto and Naruto. Naruto found the Captain Commander in a remote area with waves of flames surrounding him. The old man appeared to be ready for combat. But Naruto wasn't actually in the mood for a serious battle with him, he was just going to waste some time before leaving. Besides, he couldn't in this kind of situation. Naruto walked towards the flames that surrounded Yamamoto before coming to a halt. He looked above his right. "Hello dear, how nice of you to join us," Naruto said looking up at Anohana. This was just wrong. Naruto actually seemed happy. For the first time in a long time he seemed happy with his miserable life. "You look different than you were a few moments ago when we were talking." He was just cold that time, but now he looked lively, and that was just wrong in many ways. It would appear so. Naruto responded before continuing to move towards Yamamoto's wave of sun flames. The scorching flames didn't bother him one bit, he just walked within them like they were nothing. The blonde held his left hand, flicking it within the flames before inspecting them. "Your flames are still stronger than ever, Yamamoto," Naruto commented holding out his left hand, while his right held Amaterasu. "What happened in the inner court? You've suddenly reverted back to resemble the old you," Yamamoto questioned with so ever slightly opened eyes. The coldness still remained in his eyes, but the rest of his face said something else. It actually worried Yamamoto that Naruto was acting more like his former self, like a switch had been turned on. "Nothing major," Naruto responded coolly. "I just finished sorting out all my memories and made some choices. The explosion kind of banged up my head, so while my memories were being sorted, I took a more neutral approach to things," Naruto stated before his own flames started to leak around him. "The choice you've taken is one that will earn you a beating," Yamamoto stated strongly. He didn't move though. Naruto didn't seem like he was going to attack anytime soon. Naruto shook his head. "Not at all," he said. "The choice I made long ago to annihilate Central 46 was right, and I was also right in this instance. Those fools think they have all the powers to do anything, and they actually do anything they want, whether right and wrong," Naruto said. Central 46 ordered you to execute a little girl, and you went on to try to do it anyway. It was wrong. Shunsui and Yuka knew this, that is why they fought you. If you'd been ordered to kill me, you would have gone out to make that happen. You saw no difference in C-46 that was being manipulated by Aizen, and the real C-46. As long as it comes from there, you can't decide what is right or wrong or even make your own decision, you just run along like a little human possessed with the heart of love. This only confirms what I've always said about you Shinji-kuni, you're a slave to C-46. Yamamoto couldn't say that it had been the right choice to execute Rukia. If he had to say that, then the girl would have died after Central 46 was established again. Even so, he wouldn't agree with Naruto. Is there a need to have this useless talk, or should we just get down to it? Don't be like that Yamamoto, Naruto said. He then swung his Zanpakuto in a horizontal position. A blast of black flames mixed with Yamamoto's own flames, and they started to burn each other for dominance. The rest of the captains by now were within viewing ground of this little affair. Can I tell you something about myself? What? Yamamoto questioned with narrowed eyes. What do you think I meant when I said I had finished sorting my memories? Naruto asked quietly. It is simple really, you see for long I'd lived without an understanding of my true self. The fact was that I didn't have all my memories as a part of me was missing. But now all my parts have returned to me, but I was still having troubles sorting them in a proper timeline so that I don't confuse things. Drawing Amaterasu brought back a certain feeling that made me remember things. I guess since a part of my good soul was imprinted in her, she did well to jug my unsettled memories. I have also realized that the past actions haven't done me any good. In fact, my past attitude is what brought me to this state. So when things clicked after I had drawn Amaterasu, I thought, why not try a new way of things? I've lost too much power on this road, and no longer wish to stumble again. What I am saying is that, drawing Amaterasu has made me whole, you could even say perfect. Why are you telling me these, Naruto? Need I explain myself? I am your enemy, the general idea is that you must know whatever you can about your enemies. I'm simply supplying you with some details about me. Enough of this, more of Yamamoto's flames burst from the ground, creating a large dome of inferno that surrounded both him and Naruto. That is fine, Naruto said before bringing his blade to the right. He dashed towards Yamamoto before his blade cleaved through the flames in a horizontal slash that went above his opponent's waist. Yamamoto brought his own blade to parry the swing. A small portion of flames dispersed under the shockwave of the clash of the blades. Yamamoto pushed Naruto back, forcing him to jump back. The Soteiko only waited until he reached the ground before he flashed in front of the blonde. His blade became engulfed with flames before he sent a brutal swing towards Naruto's left shoulder. The Uchiha didn't make an attempt to block the swing, he jumped back to avoid being cut. The Soteiko didn't let up, he flashed in front of Naruto again. His blade was swung in a downward slash that Naruto blocked with his own blade. While Yamamoto was pushing him back with his sheer physical strength, Naruto spoke, I must say, I never really planned to fight you in this condition. Yamamoto jumped away from Naruto when he saw that the flames on his blade were being sucked. Naruto sheathed his blade and held out both his hands. He began absorbing Yamamoto's flames at an alarming rate. The captain commander didn't wait for the blonde to complete what he was doing, he shunpoed straight at Naruto intending to cut him in half with one swift slash. But before he could even swing his blade, Naruto uttered two words. Shinra Tensei. An unbelievable amount of force blasted the flames that he'd yet to absorb as well as Yamamoto away from him. The old man was quick to recover though. Do you think that power will strengthen you to avoid the inevitable? Whoever said I wanted to strengthen myself? Naruto asked. Now then, you have to excuse me, Yamamoto. Do you think I will allow you to leave? The captains are gathered here, and the amount of your spiritual pressure has caused them to focus on this battle alone. I've had the time I wanted to do what I pleased. Naruto pointed his finger back at the beloved Shirai. Eyes widened when they saw a large black ball of energy looming large over Shirai. A blast occurred in the sky, causing a black mist to gather. When it cleared, a small glowing ball was alone visible in the sky. That only meant one thing, all that power had been compressed into that small thing. I don't need to explain anything as you already know the drill, Naruto said before he disappeared in a swirling black vortex. The drill they knew was to allow him to go or Shirai would explode. If it did explode, It would kill thousands of Shinigami, and leave them in disarray, making things for Aizen, as he would no doubt take advantage of their confusion. After Naruto had disappeared, the small glowing ball of condensed energy also disappeared into a wormhole that appeared right under it. It was sure as hell would have caused chaos if the thing that fallen down their home and exploded. It was a tactical retreat on Naruto's part, and it worked well. Despite being overpowered and outnumbered, he was still able to get away without his head held high. Yukatake didn't want to use the concept of running with his tail between his legs. Naruto's exit wasn't like that. He had left this place calmly, while leaving them holding their breaths, just thinking that maybe, and wishing that thing didn't crash down their home. Now that he was gone, they could actually breathe. Well, that was disappointing, Zaraki said as he turned away to leave. I had expected a thrilling battle, but this is just boring. Flicking his blade over his right shoulder, the big captain of the 11th Division turned away from the other captains to mind other businesses, or take a nap. Byakuya merely shook his head at his fellow captain's attitude. There were more pressing matters to deal with rather than a thrilling battle. Central 46 was no more, again. First it had been annihilated by Aizen, and now Naruto had even managed to destroy its quarters. This only meant that they had more rebuilding to do. They also had two powerful enemies to deal with now, Aizen and Naruto. How could that man think of a thrilling battling when faced against such odds? I am still surprised, Mayuri said, looking straight at Shunsui. You said he was weak, and yet he was able to hold his blade against the Soteiko. He didn't even seem concerned by the small display of power from the captain commander. A man who was said to be weakened greatly shouldn't have been able to parry Yamamoto's blade. He should have been cut in half by the swing of the strongest Shinigami alive. But if they still maintained that he was still weakened, what did it mean for that man's power? Did it mean that he was just way stronger than his calculations? Yamajiji wasn't going all out, and whether weakened or not, Naruto is still Naruto. Besides, being weak to him means dropping down to our level, or bellow Shunsui respond. Nevertheless, if they'd gone in an all-out battle, Naruto would have lost. What now? Toshiro asked. He killed the members of Central 46, that is a great offense against Soul Society. Isn't it obvious? Swyfon said as it the answer was simple. We put a tag on his head. He is no longer just a former captain stripped of his rank, he is a traitor to the Soul Society who must be brought down to justice. Shunsui sighed, before flashing down next to Yamamoto, leaving the other captains to decide on what they were going to do. He'd noticed that Anohana was nowhere to be seen. She had walked away after Naruto disappeared. He guessed she was probably going to ensure that everyone was alright. What are you going to do, Yamajiji? Shunsui questioned, looking at his former sensei with a calm look on his face. He wasn't as so much worried about what Naruto was going to do next, he was concerned with what Yamamoto would try to do next. Yamamoto gave Shunsui a look before responding. Isn't it obvious? That fool needs a heavy beating. I am sure he does, but you and I know that Naruto won't actually come here to destroy this place. If he really wanted to see this place burned to the ground, he would have done it long ago when he had the power, Shunsui reasoned. He paused for a moment when Yukatake joined them. Don't tell me that you're going to discard that fact. Gather the rest of the captains, and meet me within an hour, Yamamoto said, while ignoring Shunsui's question. He then walked away from the two, before he disappeared via Shunpo. I see Sensei is still stubborn as ever, Yukatake said, smiling. This will only cause us more trouble since we have Aizen and his army of hollows to deal with. If they focused their attention on trying to deal with Naruto and Aizen simultaneously, it would only exhaust their resources and energy without achieving much. Yukatake also knew that if Naruto wanted to disappear from the face of the world, he could very well do that without anyone finding a trace of his existence anywhere. He had done it before, and went away for more than 100 years. Nobody even guessed where he'd gone to. Trying to search for him wouldn't yield any favorable results, they would just have to wait for him to appear. Shunsui nodded. Although Naruto himself wouldn't destroy this place, it doesn't mean he will stop anyone from doing it. Well, it isn't like I have any doubt that we can protect this place we call home, the captain of the 8th Division stated. Unknown location. Naruto was sitting down on a throne within a dimly lit room. A mixture of his and Yamamoto's flames surrounded his body, burning joyfully. It wasn't long that he'd return and set up this for his body to recover. The flames worked in a different manner than normal flames. What they were doing was burning his body, but in actuality, they were like a tonic that was breathing life into the regenerative cells inside his body. Master, a figure called as he kneeled before Naruto. We've completed surveying Las Noches and the human world. While studying the human world, we found some interesting species that I'm sure you'll be interested in. You mean the former Shinigami's leaving in exile in the human world after Soul Society had called for their execution because they were deemed to be abominations? Naruto asked, already in knowledge of these captain-class species. He wasn't ignorant enough to discard of such a presence in the human world. He just never bothered to see them because he didn't have uses for them. You already knew of them. I didn't think you would, since their existence remains a secret and they don't involve themselves in anything spiritual since they hold some loathing towards Soul Society. Anohana made mention of them when I asked about an interesting child I'd seen, Naruto said. I will see them after the necessary adjustment to my body are made. He needed to heal his body first before making another move. He couldn't allow himself to be roaming around the worlds with a weak body. Even Amaterasu didn't like the thought of a wielder who couldn't handle her carefully. But it was alright, the blade was made by his essence. Despite being female, she was more like him in some manner of speaking. Without a strong body, he couldn't fight for too long without his body breaking apart. When crossing blades with Yamamoto, Naruto felt it inside of him that his soul wanted to break free from his pathetic excuse for a body. It was really an insult to his soul that it had to be clothed with such a body, but it just couldn't be helped. How have you progressed in healing your body, Master? He was a lot more interested in what they would be doing after Naruto recovered his physical strength. For the past 1,000 years, they'd been lying dormant, inactive until the life of the Master became in threat. But once he recovered, he wouldn't be in danger because of anything. I am just starting with healing it, Naruto said. He didn't actually need Yamamoto's flames to boost his power. No, he just made the Soteiko think that. The only thing he was after was Yamamoto's Ryutsu, and he got it without the man even realizing it. Will it long? A full 2 months, at most, of non-activity from my part while I heal, Naruto said. That would be about 2 weeks in Soul Society's time. Despite not being much, my Ryutsu is in the same form as it was in my prime. This makes it way denser than what it was. My body is weak, and can't contain it. The same can be said for my soul, since it is complete. This weak body can't contain it forever. In the worst case scenario, I was likely to lose form as the body would break apart under the strain from my soul. But I have found a way to heal it quickly. The Reisu from the meal you'd prepared isn't strong enough to be atonement for my body. Yamamoto's Ryutsu does it since it is the strongest out of any Shinigami. I made him think that I was after his flames like I had done last time when I consumed them to complete my evolution. Just in case, I absorbed some of the flames. Yamamoto's flames are seen as a destructive force of nature, but if I could inject my own spirit particles into them and give them another purpose, I could make them strong enough to burn me. My body didn't need anything weak to heal, it needed something strong. I just had to manipulate the particles of the flames and add a healing touch in them. I couldn't use Amaterasu's flames to do so, for reasons that they are already a part of me and can't hurt me. His form of healing was different from what Anohana used. He didn't things that couldn't put up a fight with his Reisu, or otherwise, nothing would work. If nothing worked, his body would break apart. He felt it while clashing with Yamamoto, things were unstable inside. He couldn't afford to allow it to happen, hence the need to be inactive. Though I'm using Yamamoto's flames combined with mine, it wasn't the flames that I needed. I absorbed his dense Reisu while we clashed swords and covered it by absorbing the surrounding flames. With Yamamoto's Ryutsu, as well as his blade's Reisu, it was easy for me to recreate the flames in a new nature. For this process to be completed fully, I ought not to move. I will take 2 months long sleep to ensure that nothing happens while I heal. Hi, the figure said. Is there anything we must do while you're out? Naruto shook his head. No, I will handle things once I heal, Naruto said. He really needed this. He couldn't even open the gate to his core dimension because he was weak. Without an entrance to heaven, he couldn't be happy live in such a place when his wholeness was in him. He wasn't worthy to live in heaven back then because he was weak, but he was whole again, and the dense atmosphere within his dimension would work well in his recovery of power. The Soul Society has branded you a traitor and will be after you. Don't you think Anohana-san will be in danger because of her close ties with you? No, Naruto said. Yamamoto won't do anything since he trusts her. Retsu is also not a child, that old fool knows this much. If anything, he would rather have her take over him as Soteiko. With that in mind, he won't do anything stupid. However, if I hadn't destroyed Central 46, then she would be in danger since those fools obviously care for nothing but their own laws. Besides, Anohana can take care of herself. He had no doubt that Retsu could take care of herself, but knowing her new nature, she would probably choose to die rather than trouble Central 46 and Soul Society. His elimination of those fools ensured that she wasn't pressured into doing anything she didn't want to do, and that she could stay in her home without anyone looking at her with suspicious eyes. Why did you choose to change, Master? I imagine that since your heart was destroyed when she attempted to kill you, emotions then would become trivial and you wouldn't hold any. That is what everyone was expecting. People were expecting me to be all bitter. I saw this when I contacted Anohana. I was bitter by that time. So once my memories clicked into place, I decided to play a bit differently, Naruto explained before closing his eyes. He needed to rest now. Seal the room on your way out. Soul Society. Naruto acted a bit different than what she was expecting of him. When he returned after the explosion that tore apart his house, she still didn't understand how he survived the explosion. The look on his face was much more alike to what she was expecting of him after someone had evidently tried to kill him and nearly succeeded for that matter. But when he was holding his blade, when the black flames were around him, he'd become a completely different person. A little bit like when he used to get well with Shunsui in those younger days. Though he wasn't full of smiles, he wasn't always full of coldness either. Even when he was faced with a mountain, Yamamoto, which he knew he couldn't climb, he was so damn calm and conversing like everything was alright. At least he was a little likable in this mode. What Anohana found to be curious was the confrontation with Yamamoto. She could guess that having Central 46 around would be a problem for him, but even without them around, it was still a problem since he got rid of them while Yamamoto watched. This only meant that Soul Society would be after him. If maybe he'd left them alive, perhaps they would have waited until Aizen was dealt with. Oh, well, it was not a big problem. Even if she doesn't have the answers, Naruto would eventually tell her. He always does. Something that made her a bit excited than she liked to show was the fact that Naruto told Swaifo and he would kill her in a month. She wasn't happy about the fact that he wanted to kill one of her fellow captains. She was excited about what that actually meant. In simple words, Naruto was saying that within a month, he would be doing whatever he wants without anyone to stop him or say otherwise. Within a month, he would be strong again. 2 weeks have already passed now, which only meant 2 more weeks were left. Time was ticking, and aside from killing the members of Central 46, Naruto hadn't done anything that would assure her that he was going to recover his strength. Could he be going after Aizen? The former captain's hollow activities have been frequent these past days, and even stronger hollows were appearing. What was Naruto doing? He'd yet to appear since his little confrontation with Yamamoto. Anohana looked up from the couch which she sat on. She heard footsteps clicking within the dimly lit lab and study. This was the only secret place she knew Naruto would come to since his house was destroyed, and she didn't think he had any other holes in this spiritual world to dig himself under, while hiding from the sharpened look of Yamamoto. It was him, Naruto. His hair had grown longer again, reaching down his waist. The younger look on his face never abandoned him. The clothing was still the usual, but his blade was no longer around his waist. In fact, he didn't have it with him. The intriguing thing Anohana caught from him was that she couldn't sense anything from him. She couldn't sense his power, but he was there, just away from her. This was a surprise to see him like this. He looked perfectly fine, and the fact that she couldn't sense any Reisu from him rubbed her off the wrong way. The bandages that covered his body were all gone, and his physical appearance was as good as it could be. I thought I would find you here, Naruto said, walking towards the black-haired woman. He then chose to sit right beside her on the couch she was sitting on her left side. He leaned back to the couch to be a little more comfortable. What bothers you? He asked, seeing the look the woman was giving him. Yuri so close to me, yet I can't sense anything from you. What happened? I should be able to sense your Reisu, Retsu said in a matter of curiosity more than anything. It wasn't the first time his Reisu couldn't be sensed. Even when he returned, no one could sense his Reisu. No one could feel his power, unless he brought it down for them to feel it. Those who know my true power will never say they've felt it, they will tell you that they saw it. I am not like Shinigami, Hollows or Quincy, I am not bound by any law. The only reason you could sense my Reisu at first was because I'd lost my makeshift evolution. You see, even back then I wasn't complete. To try to become complete I chose to transcend to something higher, thinking I would perhaps reach the point I was before. It didn't work as I had intended. But now I am complete, body and soul. I just lack a bit of power, but it matters not to this rule. I exist on a different plane. The moment my body became perfectly fine, I ascended again. For this reason, you can't sense my power. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean that I've recovered all my powers, it only means I'm on track to recovery. The reason they couldn't sense his Reisu wasn't because he was just too powerful, it was simply because he was a unique being. His existence was on a higher level than Hollows and Shinigami. Although he could exist in this plane, these other beings didn't exist in his world. For them to sense his power, they'd have to be on his world. At this stage, they could only see his power, just like Amaya did. Recovery, that has been the main subject since you were unsealed. Will you ever fully recover, Naruto? It seems that every time you get close, something knocks you down. The destruction of Soul Society wasn't going to occur even if he recovered. She knew him, and knew that destruction was not what he sought. People may fear his power, but he wasn't all that bad of a person. For this reason, Anohana felt no betrayal on her part by seeing him. If she knew that he sought to destroy Siriti, then things would have been different. She couldn't say he cared for anyone in this world, she couldn't say he just loved this world, but even so, he's never sought for its destruction. Are you growing a little impatient, Retsu? Naruto asked quietly. I do understand that things haven't gone smoothly as I would have liked it. By now, I should have reclaimed my glory, but I'm still stuck on this dimension, unable to pass through to my own home. But I've had enough of hindrances, I will see this through. Nothing is going to halt my match and nothing is going to make me postpone anything. He sounded way confident that he could do it. Then again, since when did he lack confidence? He always seemed to carry an eternal supply of confidence wherever he went, it was always oozing out of his person in abundance each time he spoke. You can never be too sure about anything, even you can be surprised, Anohana said. Are you going to tell me who gave you the last scare? He hadn't told her the details of the explosion that nearly killed him and she was darn right curious about the details. I am not here to tell you that, Naruto said before sighing, time isn't yet right for me to tell you about the details. But it is the royal family who tried to kill me, he revealed, surprising Retsu, but she hid her surprise quite well. Are you serious? Well, he had said the Spirit King was trying to kill him when he returned. But that just went away like floating dust. She was even beginning to think that perhaps Naruto had lied when he said the Spirit King wanted to kill him. Do I have time to joke, Yachiru? Naruto asked rhetorically. Don't think much to it, I will handle it soon enough. After a few moments of silence, Anohana nodded. What brings you here? She didn't doubt for a second that he'd come here for something, otherwise he wouldn't risk coming here knowing that Yamamoto would pounce on him the moment he sees him. The Soteiko was a little irate after all. Shunsui suspected that it was either he was like that because he didn't get to enjoy a battle with Naruto or he missed out on a chance to beat the blonde into submission. Anohana was fairly certain that Yamamoto would never accomplish the feat, not if Naruto had a say in it. Getting a beating from someone else wasn't something Naruto even talked of, it wasn't in his vocabulary. You know I like telling you secrets, that was all that needed to be said for Anohana's attention to be fully on him. Last time I told you that I once lived in Hueco Mundo with my grandfather before coming to Soul Society. I did not have all details about my past then, but now, everything is clear. You mentioned something about your memories. Does this have to do with them? Naruto nodded. For so long, I've lived without fully understanding where I come from because my memories were stolen. Even when I did get some of them, they were often vague, making it difficult for me to fully interpret them. He paused for a moment to get a breather before continuing. I've told you already that I'm neither Shinigami nor Hollow. You can say that I exist between the barrier that connects humans, Shinigami and Hollows. What I've never told you is that a part of me is human. Human? That was just unbelievable. Naruto almost had no thoughts about humans. With all that she's seen of him, he has been doing nothing but disregarding the existence of humans. Whenever he spoke about something, he never spoke about humans, they were never in his tongue. Anohana had to be surprised by this. What do you mean a part of you is human? You've lived as a Hollow, and a Shinigami, but there has never been anything human about you. When humans die, they are either sent to be reborn in soul society or they go to hell. Some of them turn into hollows. If I had died as a human, I would have gone to hell, but the gates of hell wouldn't hold me. They couldn't even hold my grandfather. Then again, you never know with these things, he was by far stronger than that man. Hell couldn't hold him. Nothing could hold him. Naruto gave her more than one puzzling thing, and it only raised questions within Anohana's mind. Are you suggesting that you didn't die as a human and your grandfather escaped hell? That is what I'm saying, Yachiroa, Naruto said smoothly. There was a time when I discarded my humanity, in favor of a more hollow-like mentality. I was an immortal human, and over the years, the human world started to reject me and I lost a physical body. But your soul would still have remained behind. There is one little complication that aroused, my being or conscious was all over the human world. That meant that no one could see me, nor touch me, even if you were spiritually aware, Naruto said. My soul was a little too big, hence I was able to divide it without suffering any backlash. A little too big is an understatement if your soul was everywhere. Though I find it hard to believe, I think that the human world existed inside your soul. If one wanted to, they'd have to stand from another dimension and look at the human world from afar. Unfortunately, we are only able to pass through to the human world. That may be the case, Naruto said. My mother was already dead then, but I was surprised when she appeared in the human world and actually had a real conversation with me. She offered me a solution to free myself from the human world. I don't understand it myself, but she managed to give me my real form and sent me to Hueco Mundo. What do you mean, real form? Naruto smiled. This body you see is the perfect, controlled center of my being, dominated by my human nature. I did tell you I discarded my humanity. What do you think I meant by that? My real form is more of a hollow in physical appearance, but way bigger than anything you've ever seen. Let me get this straight, this isn't your real form, and you got this real form when you discarded your humanity. More to that, he already said he was immortal. That was something that was against all laws. No human was supposed to live for all eternity. Naruto nodded. After some time, I was able to recreate this body you see. Then I moved to Soul Society, where I lived with my mother for at least 10 years. The name I was given by my mother was Uzumaki Naruto, but after she disappeared without a trace, I discarded it and used the name my grandfather gave me. That is after I'd moved back to Hueco Mundo. Anohana could guess the name he was given by his grandfather was Uchiha Naruto. He still didn't show anything with regards to how he felt about the disappearance of his mother. Can I assume that you embraced your human nature when living with your mother? And you discarded it after she'd disappeared? Yes, I removed every emotion that was in me after that. So I was only left empty inside, until I met someone, Naruto said. Amaya was the one to give him emotions of love, emotions he'd lost when he lost his humanity. You already know the rest of the story, Naruto concluded. Does anyone else know about this? The royal family knows some details. Amaya knew everything about him, and she was the one he trusted the most, yet she was the one who betrayed him. Perhaps she just feared his power, perhaps there was something else she saw that he couldn't. What now? Many scenarios played in her head, but Anohana couldn't pick the one that would be perfect, one that Naruto would most likely follow. Naruto merely smiled. Kami will awaken soon from his slumber, and the worlds will know that he is indeed Kami. A large garganta opened up just above Las Noches. Naruto stepped out of the portal along with his 4 shadow subordinates. He breathed in the cold air around the hollow world. There was no sense of joy and happiness in this sand world. It only reeked of fear and death. Power-hungry fools were always running loose, searching for weaker fools to devour. This was the world of hollows, his former home. Naruto took a few steps forward within the air as the garganta behind him closed up. He looked down at the place that he was about to crash party. This was something that he needed to do, something of utmost importance to his entire existence. It didn't matter if he had to go through hollows to achieve what he'd come here for. The fact is that he wasn't going to leave this place until his objective was complete. If there was something that was stronger than his power, it was his will, his desire. Almighty or not, Kami had to awaken before he left this place to go to home. He was tired of living in this world without his glory shining over his head. He called for it to be like that. In his past life, everything always went according to plan, everything always went to his good. It was always perfection. But this time, perfection was eluding him. Where are those days when he used to decimate his opponents regardless of who they were? Where are those days he could take on a full army and destroy it without even revealing all his cards? All he had to do was waste his energy while having some fun and testing some things. This world had wronged him. Amaya had wronged him. She'd robbed him of his perfection and left him with imperfection. That was a sin. Scatter, Naruto said to his subordinates, who all disappeared into all fours without saying a word of response to their master. He had much work to do, and today, he was going to seriously battle someone. A pity only a half of the power of his eyes was only available to him. Well, I guess I should announce that I have arrived, Naruto said to himself before shaking his head with a small smile on his smile. Being explosive is a bit childish, he thought before descending down at Las Noches. He landed softly on the rooftop before blasting a hole through the roof to get through. He wasn't here on social calls, so it didn't matter how he entered, and it wasn't like he was hiding from anyone. Naruto walked calmly through the dark passages of the Las Noches with his hands folded across his chest. There was enough time to warn the residents that there was a visitor. If his Ryotsu could be sensed, then he would have directed all the attention towards him for his children to work. It was no problem though. They were specialists in what they do. Naruto finally reached the familiar room. He once had a little scuffle with Yami. As predicted, Aizen was already present, but he didn't have his lackeys with him, he only had Jin and Kaname with him. Both were flanking his sides, Jin on the right while Tuan was on the left. He was the first to speak while allowing his hands loosen on both his sides. I am not here on a social call, Naruto said calmly, looking straight at Aizen. Aizen never lost a smile on his face. He just smiled before nodding subtly. Although this isn't how expected things to play out, it still ends in the same line as I had thought, and I had imagined that you'd come back here a lot sooner after your show in Soul Society. Naruto was battling to regain his power after losing it. He had lost much, and the only thing Aizen saw that could quickly heal the man was the Hogyaku. That is what Naruto had come here for. But he was curious, how did Naruto know it would help him? As far as others were concerned, the orb was used to break the boundaries between Hollow and Shinigami, nothing more nothing less. He had not even told Jin of anything, and Naruto had never seen the Hogyaku in person or even come close to it. He knew he didn't speak to Urahara about it. Either way, even if he had spoken to that man, he wouldn't have told him. Urahara would have guessed what the blonde wanted to do with the Hogyaku, hence he wouldn't have told him if he'd asked. Even so, Urahara's knowledge of the Hogyaku was limited, it wouldn't help much. As of now, Naruto was wanted by Soul Society, just as he was. They wanted to execute him for his actions, and he held a bigger threat to their peace. But knowing of Naruto, he didn't threaten Soul Society, but his actions made him wanted for death in the spiritual world. He wasn't concerned about the fact that Soul Society had a target mark on him, he had the power to shield himself from anything, after all. Perhaps Yamamoto would be a problem. In terms of pure power, that man was far stronger, and Aizen was smart enough to realize. But with the Hogyaku, it wouldn't matter how strong the Soteiko was. It was a problem for Naruto since he didn't have all the power in an army like him. But the man didn't seem to mind the fact that he was wanted by the Godai 13. Still, it didn't change the fact that he wasn't as powerful as he needed to be to fend them off. If he was all that powerful, he wouldn't have come here, and he wouldn't be hiding from the sight of Yamamoto. Certainly, only that man was seen as a threat or an opponent, if you could say. I see, then you're prepared, Naruto said. I don't wish any interference in your plans, Aizen, and I'd rather avoid battling. For these reasons, I will say this, wouldn't it be better if you just let me do what I want? Aizen merely smiled. I am afraid I can't do that. It can't be helped them. Naruto turned away before taking a few steps forward. He then disappeared. Aizen-sama, Tuan started. You should allow us to handle him. He wouldn't allow his master to dirty his hands while he had the power to bend down on the ground and wipe the floor. In this stance, he was willing to fight Naruto in the stead of Aizen. He was positive and he and Jin could handle it. I am not really looking forward to it, Jin said. He would rather have Naruto fight Aizen just to see how the blonde would fare against the former captain. Aizen was far stronger and he didn't believe that anyone could defeat him. But if everything about Naruto was true, then he should give the king of Hueco Mundo a match. Jin. Tuan warned. A subordinate must always be ready to dirty his hands for his master. Even if it was life-costing. It is all right, Kaname, Aizen said smoothly. I am sure Jin knows that I'm rather looking forward to the battle, and Captain Naruto won't allow himself to be disrespected by having to fight a child when the father is present. If I were to send you to him, he would probably kill someone out of sheer annoyance. What of the espada? Leave them be, Aizen said. Didn't either of you notice something peculiar? The man asked before he too disappeared via Shunpo. His subordinates followed him as they weren't in search of Naruto. He did leave a trail behind for him to follow. Once they arrive at a barren land, not far away from Las Noches, they found Naruto standing still on the ground. Jin was the first to respond to Aizen's question. You mean his lack of presence? This was the first time he was actually experiencing it, but he had heard of it before. Aizen nodded. It truly is an interesting thing. My only guess is that despite losing his power, Captain Naruto is a being that has transcended beyond the boundaries of Shinigami and Hollows. Then again, he was never Shinigami or Hollow to begin with. This is something of what he was aiming for. He wanted to be high above other beings and overthrow the Soul King. He guessed that they could probably never feel the heights of his power unless he brought it down to their level. He didn't for once think that this man had just discarded his spiritual pressure in favor of healing himself to have a stronger body, and it did trouble him that he was on a higher level than him. But this only meant that he has something to aim. What is he if he isn't Shinigami or Hollow? Jin asked particularly to no one. His eyes were strongly fixed on the man below them. He didn't seem to mind having them have their little talk, which got him curious. What if he had brought them here just to stall? I've come to the hypothesis that he was once a human who gained powers. I don't know how. But his human self simply transcended into what he is today. Unlike Shinigami and Hollows, that man can be seen even by mere humans who are not spiritually aware, even without a Jigai, Aizen said smoothly. Jin raised a curious eyebrow. How's that possible? That is a mystery that eludes me, Aizen said as he started descending down the ground, leaving his subordinates to observe. Once he touched down he stood still before speaking to Naruto. You said you did not intend to interfere with my plans, can you explain that for me? Naruto held out his right hand. Black Reisu began to pour out of his hand, gathering into his palm. It then started to shape in the form of a large ball that was almost half as big as Naruto. The ground beneath Naruto shattered like something heavy had crashed as Naruto reduced the size of the ball by compressing it. It became a small orb floating above his hand. Naruto lifted a single finger before flicking it. The orb sped towards Aizen in blinding speeds, but the former captain didn't bother to dodge as the orb blew just inches away from him. The orb hit the ground a distance away and exploded in a rather destructive force that shook the very ground they stood. Aizen didn't bother to shield himself from the gusts of wind and debris that had picked up because of the explosion, he'd merely narrowed his eyes to observe. That was just some destructive power. He was positive a blast like that would have leveled a mountain. He looked back at Naruto who still had his finger raised, and floating above the small crater that was formed by the pressure of his technique. I don't have much Ryoryoku inside my soul. But it is almost as thrice as potent as Yamamoto's. So, though I am weak, the power of my attacks is not reduced, what is reduced is that I can't keep it up for too long because I have limits. That explosion was nothing more than a compressed blitz of my Ryutsu, this only confirms my superiority. I am not one of you, never was and never will be. When I look at Hollows, Shinigami, everything that breathes, I see things that are below my feet. There is nothing I cannot bend. Inside of my belly lies the rivers of living water, there is life in me, hence I can't be killed. I have bested all those who claimed to have no equal, even without the full complements of my power. Yamamoto couldn't even cut me before I chose to go away. The Soul King whom you seek to overthrow is a mere child before my eyes. I have seen so many things, I have experienced so many things. I have lived in all worlds, and have fought many battles. These hands of mine have crushed many who dared to oppose me. It comes to the point when Soul Society is engaged in war I merely wish to watch from afar, I have no interest in fighting the battles of Soul Society. The years I have lived, the things I have seen, the power I once held, makes everything become trivial. If I involve myself, the conclusion is predictable, and that is no fun. Besides, I have relinquished my claim as Shinigami, and so I shall not involve myself in their spats. Aizen absorbed everything with a watchful eye. He came to this conclusion, this man had no interest in his war against Soul Society because it was a little thing. He has seen too much that even a war doesn't make him excited. He has enough power to put everything into order. He believed that if he got involved, then predictably, his side would win because no one was superior to him. There was also the unspoken, I am God and I don't really involve myself in human matters. Yuri saying that even if Soul Society was to fall on her knees, you wouldn't do anything. Aizen was certainly not asking a question. He already knew Naruto wouldn't be Soul Society's hero. But there still lied a problem. A god sits in the heavens, and so far, no one was sitting in the heavenly throne. If Naruto claimed all his power, then they would clash for heaven's throne. Nonetheless, if Naruto had the power, he would have someone who could test his power once he fuses with the Hogyaku. If Aizen were to be honest with himself, he was really curious to see how Naruto was powerful in all his glory. If his desire was to aim for a higher level than Naruto's, then the Hogyaku could make it happen. For this reason, he didn't fear a clash with Naruto. Not at all, that thing is the sworn protector of the spirit world, and the one who holds it together. I am bit curious to see how he will defend it while keeping the balance so that it doesn't collapse. I'd even be willing to tie the royal guard, Naruto stated rather calmly. This man was actually serious. Aizen couldn't help but chuckle. This was just priceless. He never really thought such a man would exist and be able to speak to him like this. This man wasn't stupid, and he was a worthy foe. For the first time felt like he met an equal, he met someone who could actually understand, and this only made him a bit excited. You came here for the Hogyaku, but you still pushed away from it. You could have chosen to battle in Lost No Chase where it is closer, but you chose here. You've also made light of the fact that you can't last long in battle, so even if you did defeat me, you'd still have to go through 2 Captain Class Shinigami, and my Espada. I doubt those odds favor you, but you're here, Aizen stated. This leads me to conclude that you didn't come here alone. Naruto didn't bother to hide or deny it. Yes, I didn't come here alone. But have no fears, I do not wish to take the Hogyaku away from you. I simply wish to use it then return it back. You sound confident that it will help you. But so far the Hogyaku has been used to break the boundaries that exist between Hollows and Shinigami. When used on Shinigami, it causes them to go through a hollowification process which gives them hollow powers. Hollows go through Arankarification to become more like my Espada, Aizen responded, trying to draw out the knowledge of the man on the Hogyaku because he certainly didn't know what he knew. There are those who you've used the Hogyaku on, Hollows I mean, but they aren't within the Espada. In fact, they are nothing more than outcasts in your army, Naruto started a bit calmly. The power awakened by the Hogyaku depends on the power within the soul of the subject. The Espada were all strong Vastolords, I presume. Also, the one using the Hogyaku must also be very strong. Aizen didn't confirm nor deny it. You have already crossed between the lines of Hollow and Shinigami, do you still think it will work on you? When I first came here, I felt its presence. I must admit, it was a bit overwhelming to feel something of its nature, even though it was sleeping. So, I had this question, how was I able to attract its attention? I felt that it was trying to get inside of me, but I do not like things trying to sneak into my mind. And so I blocked its path. Still, I was curious. What kind of thing was it that calls for me? I am not a lost child, human, or Shinigami. My existence far surpasses that of the starved hollows that surrounds it, so what kind of thing was it? Soul Society only knows what Kisuke told them, but his information though sound, wasn't satisfying to me. The Hogyaku was buried inside Rukia's soul, by Urahara. She had contact with humans in the form of Chad, and Inu. I don't count much of Kurosaka because he was already spiritually aware since birth. But before that, I had to ask myself this question, what gave those humans power? It isn't possible for humans to desire the strength to protect what they wish and have it unless some god grants the wish. When I looked at the situation that led to the birth of those powers, I realized that someone was manipulating the events that happened. First of all, hollows of that magnitude shouldn't have appeared that day, unless someone was sending them. These humans were in dire situations, helpless against things they couldn't see. In that situation you birth the desire to be strong enough to see and fight. This is when those powers manifested, and at that time, Rukia was present in the human world. She already had contact with Ichigo, she had already transferred her powers to him. In all my years, I can tell you without doubt that humans don't just manifest powers without another force driving the manifestation. There was nothing else that could have made those powers appear, well, except for one thing. When Urahara created his Hogyaku, he thought to break the boundary between hollows and Shinigami. Eventually, This would lead to hollowification, which you had been experimenting on before he did. Hollows desire nothing more than power for survival. The hunger of a hollow is only satisfied by power, this is their strongest desire. Without power in this kind of world, you become food, hence the mentality. If the Hogyaku is used to break the boundary that lies between hollow and Shinigami, why haven't you done it yourself? One of those has already gone through the hollowification and your espada are not experiments, they are finished products, so why? I have realized this, that thing's existence is much more mysterious, and one thing that assures me that it will offer me a hand with what I want is that it is able to create life. The hollow spirits that these Shinigami who have gone through the hollowification process are a new life force, but they share the same body as the Master. However, Naruto held his right hand and muttered a few words before an invisible force pulled Tuan towards Naruto. What? Tuan thought as he tried to resist being pulled, but he couldn't. The force was just too powerful, and Jin nor did Aizen make an attempt to rescue him before he was pulled closer to Naruto. The blonde placed his left hand on Tuan's chest and markings spread across his body, restraining him. This hollow inside of him is a little different from a Zanpakuto spirit, it can exist on its own despite being created from his soul. Why? Simply because it is a hollow. I can pull it out of his soul, Naruto said. He removed his left hand from Tuan's chest. His right moved towards the man's chest with intent to pierce through his chest, but before he could do any damage, Aizen blocked his hand with his palm. That won't be necessary, the man said ever so calmly. I imagine it would either cripple him or kill him if something like that happens. Naruto merely snapped his fingers and the markings on Tuan disappeared. The former captain didn't need to be told twice to make his distance. Naruto looked straight into the eyes of Aizen, he smiled. The blonde exposed the right side of his face which was hidden under his hair. Aizen noticed that he didn't have a right eye. My right eye is needed, and since the Hogyaku is capable of creating life, it can recreate it. This is something that is within my DNA. So I am not looking forward to gain any power from the Hogyaku, I simply wish to restore that which has been stolen. Naruto paused for a moment. But it appears that you are not going to make it easy for me. Well, it can't be helped. Naruto opened his left palm, facing Aizen. Let us see if you can make me draw out my blade when my body is perfect, the blonde stated, but before he could release a Shinra Tensei, Aizen blurred out of his sight. The man took out his Zanpakuto and held it in front of him. Many do not know the true power of my Zanpakuto. I don't believe you have, would you like me to show you? When you have grown strong, and unrivaled for many years, you tend to underestimate things, and those around you. But I have learned that even a god can be brought down to his knees by a simple tactic, Naruto stated, staring straight at Aizen. You asked me if I wish to see the power of your Zanpakuto, this is my answer, do you wish to see the power of my left eye? Although it was a simple question, Naruto went on to do it anyway. He didn't wait for Aizen to respond, he merely ensnared the man under the world of Tsukuyomi. Aizen found himself in an unfamiliar world, it was like a deep hole of darkness that he found himself in. Everything was just dark. The lights went on when Naruto spoke, they were in the form of stars dazzling just above him, illuminating the ground beneath his feet. You say the power of your blade is complete hypnosis. But what it does is merely create an illusion that can't be escaped. Unfortunately for you, whether you baptize me or not, my eyes see all the truth, Naruto stated walking over to Aizen. Well, it was technically true that his blade created an illusion that couldn't be escaped. But why does this man say that and nevertheless says that his eyes can see through it? He had always known that there was something special about those eyes, but he never expected to be able to create a tangible world. He could feel that despite the fact that it looked like an illusion, it felt real. What Aizen never got to finish as Naruto cut him off. Is this place? The blonde finished for the former 5th Division captain. Aizen was greatly surprised, it was like he read his mind. Naruto smiled. This is my world, although we're inside your head. I am God here, I control everything and all your thoughts are broadcasted to me. This is how I can defeat you and make you tell me whatever I can, without touching you on the outside. This is impossible, Aizen thought, trying to test if Naruto was being truthful or not. It is possible, Naruto said. Now does that satisfy your curiosity? I am surprised, Aizen simply said. Though, no surprise was evident in his expression or tone. He looked perfectly fine on the outside. I didn't think that you had this kind of power. I suspect that this kind of power is the one that enable you to see the hollow living inside Kaname's inner world. It is not the same thing, Naruto said but didn't elaborate. Aizen, you cannot escape from this world, no matter what happens, no matter how strong you are. I've already told you, there is no Shinigami whose Ryutsu's potency can match mine. I see, Aizen didn't lose his smile despite the situation he found himself in. So the strength of this illusion is determined by how potent your Ryutsu is. I guess this means that if one possess greater Reisu than yours, then there is a way to break free. That wasn't exactly right. But Naruto wasn't going to correct the man. He already got what he wanted. I will show you that this isn't just an illusion. He held out his right hand at Aizen. A beam of black energy shot out from his palm and sped towards Aizen, who couldn't move a muscle. The beam shot through his left shoulder, piercing through, and left behind a gaping hole. Again, Aizen was surprised. He still didn't show it. The pain was real, his mind registered it. He looked at the wound on his shoulder, he was bleeding. Normally, a blast like that shouldn't have pierced him, but it did. He guessed that since Naruto says he controls everything in this world, then everything must work on his favor. Naruto snapped his finger and everything returned to normal. Aizen looked at his shoulder, nothing, but he could still remember the pain quite well. It also appeared that despite spending a few minutes in that illusion, no time had passed here. So, Naruto could speak to someone without anyone even realizing it. Aizen looked at Naruto carefully before coming to a conclusion. While my ability targets the 5 senses, your ability targets the mind. I assume that if you inflict enough damage to the target, the mind will eventually collapse, being unable to handle the pain. Naruto nodded. That is about right, he said. What a frightening ability, Aizen said smiling. It is nothing, really, Naruto said. He wasn't being modest. He could do so much more. Say, he held out both his hands and formed a pyramid between his fingers. Byakurai, a beam of black lightning shot straight Aizen in some incredible speed. The spell was a modified version of the normal pale lightning. The spell packed some incredible power, and was capable of piercing through almost anything. Aizen reacted quickly. Bakudo 44, Sekisho. A thin wall of light gray energy quickly formed in front of him before the fast-coming spell reached him. The black lightning hit his fast-formed barrier before piercing right through it. The barrier was broken like glass, and the black lightning reared towards Aizen. The man did enough to move his upper body a bit to the right to avoid being cut. When the spell whizzed through him, Aizen had no doubt it could have pierced through him like a bullet. Are you trying to disappoint me, Aizen? Naruto suddenly spoke behind the former captain. Aizen refused to widen his eyes. It was impossible for him to allow anyone to get behind him without noticing it. How could he have moved so fast? He never for once took his eyes off the man, let alone blink. He quickly spun around to face the blonde, but he was forced to curse because the blonde was holding his hands in the same sign as he did when he fired the first spell. Byakurai. The spell pierced through his right shoulder in bliss of electrical shocks that went through his spine. Aizen flashed away from Naruto and appeared a distance away. He looked at his wound. It was damaging. If it had hit his hand, it could have cut it. The man narrowed his eyes. This was just too easy. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to feel his Reisu. He opened them before shaking his head. He looked at Jin. He looked amused, while Tuan seemed to be confused. He looked at Naruto. He was in the same sport as before and had the same amused look as Jin. He noticed that he no longer felt pain on his shoulder, and when he looked, there was nothing, just like last time. It didn't take long for him to understand why Jin looked amused and why Tuan looked confused. Yes, he'd been running around like a circus freak, trapped under an illusion while they watched. No doubt Jin made a cheeky comment about it. Tuan probably didn't understand the situation, hence his confusion. He, Sosuke Aizen, had been caught under an illusion. Impossible. Impossible. Truly impossible. He couldn't comprehend how that had happened. This was the sort of thing he did to those pawns he used as a means to an end. He was the one who manipulated things. He was the one who stood still and watched while his opponents play in his palm, not the other way around. That man had made him taste his own medicine without he even realizing it. Aizen looked at the man who had made a fool out of him. This man was dangerous after all. He hadn't moved, and yet something has happened. He had been beat at his own game. Even without power, this man could still use his eyes to make up for it, and his strong Ryutsu made his attacks far stronger. I underestimated you, Aizen said, a small smile, but narrowed eyes. Though I knew you were powerful, I certainly wasn't expecting this much, that was the complete truth. There wasn't anything he left. Everyone does that, Naruto said. It has been long since he was so amused. I guess this means that we can see other things now, the blonde finished. Yes, Aizen stated, as his heavy spiritual pressure begun to pour out in all his fullness. His curiosity was piqued further, he wanted to see more of what this man can do. Jin merely smiled under the weight of Aizen's spiritual pressure. The hollows were certainly not going to come anywhere near this place, and since Aizen had said Naruto hadn't come alone, it meant that the Espada would be busy in Las Noches to come here. Capt Aizen ain't happy, he thought a bit gleefully than he should be. Naruto held out his hand, getting a feeling of Aizen's Ryutsu. So this is your Ryutsu, he said, still smiling the same smile Aizen usually wore. It is quite impressive given your age. A few more years and Yamamoto would be a child to you. Yamamoto wasn't getting any younger, and his power, though still great, as the years add on, it will only weaken. Aizen on the other hand was still young and had the chance of surpassing that old fool. Shunsui had the potential to at least match Yamamoto on his own. Not to say Yukatake was by any means lower than that. But both of them didn't like fighting, hence their powers were limited and never improved much. They were still the strongest aside from Yamamoto, but their lack of hunger for power that is, has hindered their growth. It was such a waste. A black mist began to gather around Naruto, reaching just below his knees. Aizen couldn't feel anything from the mist, it was just like being unable to sense Naruto's power. The mist suddenly became flames, lighting up around the blonde. Aizen didn't make the first move, he waited for Naruto. Oh, you want Uchiha Naruto to make the first move? Naruto asked before taking a few steps towards Aizen. The flames followed him as he walked. He then completely disappeared in a sound of static before appearing in front of Aizen, just above him. The right hand was outstretched, a mean punch was aimed at the man's face. Aizen brought up the side of his Zanpakuto to block the punch. He was almost overwhelmed by the power of the punch as it forced his feet to burrow down the sandy ground due to its immense force. He had even made the mistake of using only one hand to block the mean punch. Aizen allowed the force to push him back a little before pushing back in one quick burst of power. His right foot was swung in a high kick towards Naruto, but the Uchiha made his distance before the kick could connect with him. Naruto dashed at Aizen again, debris picking up as he rocketed towards the former captain. Once he reached the man, a black rod formed on his right hand, and he made a motion to strike the man straight at his chest. But he suddenly disappeared, appearing behind Aizen. The man was able to follow his movements, and he quickly spun around to slice through the rod that would have pierced his back. Aizen didn't let up, he twisted again and aimed a high right-footed kick at Naruto's temple. The kick was blocked by both Naruto's hands, which were held in a crossed formation. The kick did manage to send the Uchiha back a bit. His opponent seized the chance to use Kido and swapped his blade to his left before holding out his right hand. Bakudo 4, Hanawa, a crackling yellow energy rope formed on his hand, and the former captain threw it straight at Naruto. The Reishi rope bound Naruto's hands and the rest of his body, robbing him of his mobility. Shinra Tensei, Naruto uttered, shattering through the Bakudo which held him in place. Aizen had already covered the distance between them. The man's blade was swung diagonal downward slash from his right shoulder. Naruto held out his left hand to block the slash. He actually caught Aizen's blade, before flicking one of his right hand finger, hitting Aizen with a wind bullet straight at his chest. The wind bullet sent the man sailing away, but he recovered quickly and landed gracefully on the ground. He stared at Naruto for a moment, to think that he could actually catch his blade just like that. He looked at his katana and saw some blood, he flicked it, drawing the blood away. Naruto raised a curious brow, holding out his right hand. "I've been cut," he said, some surprise on his face. "My body is not perfect as I thought it was," he stated, watching the gash on his hand close rather quickly due to his high-speed regeneration. "It seems that I also underestimated you." Aizen knew he felt something when he cut the blonde. "I felt a bit of your Reisu when I cut you," he said. "It didn't matter much though." Hado 33, Sukatsui. Aizen shot a stream of blue flames that sped towards Naruto from the palm of his hand. He didn't need incarnations for Kido of this level. Besides, he wasn't expecting it to do anything to his opponent. Naruto merely deflected the blast with the back of his right hand towards his right side, changing its path. He narrowed his eyes behind as Aizen suddenly appeared behind him. Hado 54, Hyene. Aizen fired a blast of purple energy at Naruto. The blonde quickly twisted around to face the spell. He wasn't too late to see it collide with him. When it connected with him, it exploded into a heap of red flames that surrounded him. When the flames died down, Naruto was standing with his hands crossed in an X position in front of him. A thick smoke was pouring out of his body like he had been cooked by them flames. But there was no damage done by the spell. Naruto looked up, as Aizen was looking down at him before he returned to ground level. Not even a scratch, the rogue Shinigami said. I guess Kido of this level will not work on you, he said. Naruto didn't respond. He held out his left hand. A circle of white energy formed just in front of him, and whiter energy begun to gather at the center. Pale bullet, the blonde muttered before a thick stream of white energy blasted towards Aizen in some insane speed that not even he was expecting. He brought out his blade and held it in front of him to block the Kido. When it connected with the side of his blade, it pushed him back due to its tremendous power. Naruto snapped his fingers and everything just went boom in front of Aizen. A cloud of debris quickly formed, surrounding the former captain. But he shot out of the debris a second later, with only his right sleeve burned by the blast. He was also quick to attack though because Naruto was merely standing still, waiting to see the result of his spell. You who is crowned with the name of man. Wearing a mask of blood and flesh, flying on 10,000 fluttering wings, with thunder's carriage and an empty spinning wheel, break the light into 6 pierces, carve a twin lotus on a wall of pale blue flames, and await the blazing fires to reach the distant heavens. Bakudo 61, Ryukyukoro. 6 thin, wide, beams of light slammed into Naruto's midsection, all around his body, holding him down. Before Aizen could follow this with anything, Naruto spoke. I guess the warm-up is over them, he said. Shinra Tensei, a huge blast occurred around him, drawing dust to pick up around them. What followed then was a wave of black flames that spread around the barren field. Come, Amaterasu, Naruto called out holding out his right hand. His blade then appeared in a swirl of flames, before he grasped it firmly. He slashed it through the air around him, clearing the dust that had picked up. Here I come, Aizen, Naruto announced before he rocketed towards the former captain like a bullet. The blonde was right in front of Aizen in an instant. Flames were pouring out of his blade with intense heat. The heat the flames produced was the only thing that Aizen could actually say he was sensing and feeling. Aside from that, there was nothing that he could feel, in terms of power. Naruto swung his blade from the left towards Aizen's right upper body, while holding it with his right hand. Aizen parried the slash with his own swing. A sound of swords clashing echoed throughout the clearing. Kyoka Suijutsu trembled under the absolute power of Naruto's Zanpakuto. The clash of their swords produced a shockwave crushed the ground beneath them. Naruto brought back his blade before swinging it from his right, a downward slash above Aizen's head. The man held his blade above him in a horizontal position to block the slash. Again, his Zanpakuto cringed when the blades clashed. A wave of black flames poured out of the blade. Aizen made the distance to avoid getting burned by the flames that would have no doubt put a mark on him. While he was still airborne, Naruto appeared above him, another downward slash aimed at his right shoulder. Aizen blocked the slash with his blade. But, Naruto had put way more power than before. He was sent sailing downwards the sandy ground. He hit the ground with his knees, and Naruto was in front of him again, palm facing him head on. Shinra Tensei, a focused blast was sent straight at the downed captain. Aizen couldn't resist against the invisible force that was pushing him. After going airborne for some distance, he was finally able to control his movements and landed safely on the ground. Naruto held his right hand as a dense black energy begun to gather on his palm. Death Beam, a beam of dark energy, didn't smile when it roared straight towards Aizen in a blitz of speed. The Kido was strong enough to peel the sand beneath it as it sped towards the former captain. Bakudo 81, Danku. Aizen shouted as he formed a barrier of energy right in front of him to shield himself from the dangerous-looking attack. The attack collided with his barrier, but failed to break through. Before he could even breathe a sigh of relief, Naruto was again behind him, having used the distraction his jutsu caused. Death Beam, but this time, it was a little less powerful than last time. The technique hit the rogue Shinigami head-on straight on his back, sending him pummeling towards the barrier he had created to block the first Death Beam. Things cleared down and Aizen looked calmly at Naruto, hands sporting burn marks, sleeves all missing. He still smiled though. In terms of pure physical power, you are as overwhelming as Yamamoto, he stated calmly. You think? Naruto asked, holding out his left hand. Zero, he shot a black beam of energy straight Aizen, who deflected to his side with his blade. I guess it is my turn to attack now, he said. Aizen blurred out of sight, moving towards Naruto. The speed was improved, not only that, his swing also packed more power. Naruto felt it when the man swung his blade in a diagonal slash that passed through his chest. He had evaded it by leaning back. While he was still in that position, Aizen held out his right hand, limit of the thousand's hands, respectful hands, unable to touch the darkness. Shooting hands unable to reflect the blue sky. The road that basks in light, the wind that ignited the embers, time that gathers when both are together, there is no need to be hesitant, obey my orders. Light bullets, 8 bodies, 9 items, Book of Heaven, Diseased Treasure, Great Wheel, Grey Fortress Tower. Aim far away, scatter brightly and cleanly when fired. Heido 91, Senjukuten Teiho. Purple beams of energy formed the former captain as he chanted before they shot straight at Naruto and hit him dead on. A large explosion rocked through the clearing, picking a large amount of sand into the air. Jin and Tuan had to hide their eyes by their hands to shield from dusting blinding them. It took several moments for the debris to die down, but when it did, Aizen saw Naruto standing still, head facing above, his blade wasn't on his hand and the black flames had disappeared. More importantly, there wasn't even a scratch on him. Our little time is over, Naruto stated, before taking a thoughtful look. I have used much more of my Ryutsu than I'd thought. But if you persist, he held out his right hand in a force of gravity, first forced Tuan and Jin down the ground on their knees. Aizen followed shortly. I have no problem in continuing, but your survival is not guaranteed. The blonde stopped the technique before it affected him too. Aizen got up from the ground. It wasn't the power of his Reisu that brought him down. No, it was the force of gravity. With all that he has seen, he could assume that the blonde could manipulate gravity. A shadowy figure then appeared in front of Naruto holding something that didn't surprise him at all, the Hogyaku. As though reading Aizen's mind, Naruto responded. When I took you out on a ride to my world, I told you that all your thoughts are not hidden from me. I also told you that I could also make you tell me anything I wanted. Although there was a fake, hidden, the real one was also hidden as well. If I hadn't gotten to your head, I wouldn't have found it. Your espada are all trapped inside a barrier that is surrounding Las Noches, so they can't come here. You wonder how he was able to get into your secret lair without being caught. I will tell you this, these subordinates of mine are special. Unless you see them, you can't feel their presence. That is what I mean. Naruto had his index finger pointed behind Aizen. The man narrowed his eyes behind him. There were 2 shadow figures behind him. He hadn't sensed them, and that only proved what Naruto said to be correct. It was something for him to allow someone behind him like this. Aizen looked back at Naruto. That is too bad, he said. Even though the Hogyaku isn't in my hands, it belongs to me, and how can you even say that my thoughts were just what I wanted you to hear? I don't need to prove anything, Aizen, Naruto said, taking the glowing orb from his subordinate. He looked at it before he crushed it. It is a fake, he said. The real one is with you, and has been with you all along. How do you figure? I told you that my eyes can see through everything. I told you that the world you were in was under my control. What do you think those 2 are doing behind you if I had the real thing with me? Did you think that they just appeared behind you and stood still? Aizen narrowed his eyes, when he felt the Hogyaku coming to life inside his pocket. He didn't know if Naruto knew all along or he was just finding about it now. He did also say that he felt its presence back then, but he couldn't have felt it now since he was suppressing it. That thing belongs to you, but it isn't fully under your control, and I have explained some things I've concluded about it. I don't need it to be in my possession for my wish to be granted. It wouldn't be possible if it was a part of you. But it isn't a part of you, Naruto said, clasping both his hands together. A high wall of flames sprouted from the ground, surrounded them. Naruto took a few steps towards Aizen before coming to a halt at a good distance. Aizen looked at the flames. He couldn't escape from here, and he was sure if he tried to take flight, the gap up there would close. It can't be helped, he said to himself. There was no escape him here, and despite all the theories Naruto threw at him, he wasn't too sure about anything, hence this prison. It can't, Naruto stated. These flames are my will, nothing can break through, just as nothing can triumph my will. He still had the Hogyaku in his possession. Nothing was absolute other than it. Whether be it Naruto or Yamamoto, nothing could stand in the way if he was one with the orb. The power of Hogyaku was eternal after all. If he wished to stand above all Shinigami, even Naruto, then the Hogyaku could make it happen. As long as he fused with it, he would be the ultimate transcendent being. It may be true that Naruto has already transcended, but he would surpass it all. He had created the Hogyaku with this thought. It wasn't that he hadn't known that Naruto wasn't powerful, he had always known. The fact that he was sealed in the Soul King's dimension instead of facing execution meant that they couldn't kill him, not even the Soul King. Yamamoto had been defeated by this man, and during those days, the old man was a lot stronger than he was now. He had known all along that this man was absolute when it came to power. He had admitted, after all, that it was Naruto's existence that led him to think of creating the Hogyaku. He wanted to surpass a man like this, and he believed he would do it. Aizen took a few steps forward towards Naruto until he was just a little closer. He took out the Hogyaku from his right pocket and held it firmly for a moment. He couldn't suppress its glow anymore, perhaps it was because it was really close to this man and he had already used some of his Reisu while fighting him. He held out the Hogyaku and placed it on Naruto's forehead. He connected with Hogyaku to activate its power, while applying his Ryutsu. A bright light showered around the fire prison, blinding everyone. Aizen took a step back with the Hogyaku still on his right hand. Naruto's flames had burst out in a heap. The flames surrounded him, forming like a black dome. A large explosion tore through the large walls of flames, but it didn't break it. The explosion was so great it blew Aizen away from Naruto, sending him crashing towards the wall of flames. The man hit the wall with his back, but quickly recovered to move away from the wall because the flames were starting to burn his back. He nearly widened his eyes when he saw that the inside of the flame prison had a rather large crater, and that made his landing awkward because he wasn't expecting it. The walls of flames disappeared, allowing Aizen to see the outside. Naruto was still surrounded by the dome of black flames. The dome crumbled down, revealing Uchiha Naruto. He didn't look any different than before, other than the Shakujo that was floating on his right side, and 12 small black balls that were floating on his back. The shadowy figures had also disappeared his view. Still, Aizen couldn't feel anything from Naruto. Not a damn thing. "Ah, it is so good to feel this lively again," Naruto exclaimed with a smile, but it completely vanished only to be replaced by a blank look. "Hello Naruto," a deep voice said inside his mind. "Should I perhaps call you Anai-sama?" the voice questioned. "Raiden," Naruto growled. "Who gave you permission to enter my head? You were never going to give the permission, and I needed to speak to you. We haven't spoken in many years since you locked your mind and refused to speak to me when you were in my dimension. Disappear, Raiden, I am busy with something. I can see that now. The fact that I can now speak through telepathy means that you have restored much of your strength. For this reason, I really am." Naruto cut him off. "Damare, I told you to go away, Raiden." Naruto then looked at Aizen for a moment before speaking. "You can't sense my power because it is immeasurable, hence I cannot bring it down for your level of understanding. But, I can break the barriers that stand between me and you, only for a second though." Just then, a monstrous spiritual pressure hit the terrain. Jin and Tuan were the first to fall down the ground on the knees. They didn't keep much on their knees, they were forced to lie down by their front. Aizen was also forced down on his knees in a second. He used his hands to avoid going down on the same position as Jin and Tuan. The spiritual pressure disappeared. Bakana. 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 Even in this state of power, he shouldn't have been brought to his knees so simply. He couldn't even resist one bit under the pressure. No, even Yamamoto could do this to him. There was no Shinigami nor a Hollow who could do this to him. This is why it just seemed impossible for someone to force him to his knees. That is something only tools dream of doing. It wasn't possible. Yet it had happened. What was even more possible was that it had happened in a second. He couldn't even put up a resistance for a second? Bakana. A large black portal opened behind Naruto, and the blonde turned away from Aizen, who was still trying to comprehend everything. "Jin, let us go," the blonde said. "Jin." Kaname growled, staring at the former captain. "Are you betraying, Aizen-sama?" Jin merely smiled and looked at Aizen. "See you around, Aizen Teiko," he said flashing right behind Naruto. They both walked into the portal before it closed behind them. The moment it closed, The heavy atmosphere of the dimension forced Jin to drop down on his knees within the black passageway they were walking. Everything else around, up and beneath the passageway was just like a black night filled with shining stars. Jin found it really hard to breathe within this world, and the atmosphere was just crushing his body.